And if you guys have any ideas for a title, let us know. The Haider brothers, the Haider report. I don't know. And if our other brother joins us, it might be Haider³ for that episode. We have another brother, Ali, who is actually currently working on a project for a company that just launched. Some like girly sounding name. Anyway, it's like a probiotic, prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic all in one.
I think you meant it sounds like a girl's name. Yeah, it's called
Yes.
like Leela or something like that.
Lila. Yeah, Lila. I think it's LYLAH health or LYLA health. One of those. Let's look it up. LYLA. Yeah, I think it's LYLA health. No, that's like an urgent care. So it's a Lila with an H. Lila. Reset your, upgrade your heart health. Yeah, Lila.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, check it out. Just launched. Seems pretty interesting. So just to mention that, it's so probiotics are basically like the good bugs in your gut, and then the prebiotics are what they eat. So they've joined those two together, and then a postbiotic is what the good bacteria make in your gut. So they're kind of like throwing that in there also. And so usually functional medicine practitioners and biohackers and people who are into this kind of stuff, they'll usually take them all separately, and this is all in one. So it's pretty cool. And the butyrate.
What is the benefit to the postbiotics?
Yeah, so it has a lot of health benefits. So a lot of the benefits of the probiotics come from them making the postbiotic, which is the butyrate. So especially in the beginning, it just kind of like boosts that benefit, for you. It kind of like adds that thing. And so functional medicine practitioners will usually oftentimes add that for gut healing and gut health. And so, like Hippocrates said, every disease begins in the gut. And, when you start to try to heal these chronic diseases and get to the root cause, you do realize that a lot of issues are gut related and gut inflammation and stuff. So the butyrate helps with that and helps to heal the gut lining and, get rid of the problems that are at the source of the disease. So it's, backed by science, as they say. I think they probably have links to a bunch of studies showing the benefits of all three of these things. And it's the only one I know of. I don't own a stake in it. I don't get any money from them or anything, but it's the only one I've ever heard of that combined those three. So it's a cool idea. Anyway, so
what would Shabazz say about where disease starts?
Shabazz does recommend probiotics. He has me on a probiotic. So sometimes he'll recommend things like this. He never recommended butyrate to me, but probiotics and prebiotics for sure. I mean, that's like, but he usually will tell you to eat something as a prebiotic. So you can eat, like, some people will, like, basically you're looking for
fiber.
Like fiber. And inulin is a good one. So it's found in Jerusalem artichokes. And you can also, like, some people will just eat like kind of greenish banana, like somewhat unripe bananas. That works really well if you can tolerate bananas. So yeah, but Shabazz does sometimes recommend probiotics. There's a specific one that he gets from Canada, or you have to order it from Canada. That's the one he usually recommends. So it's like a super potent.
So are prebiotics by definition like non-digestible fiber?
I think so. Yeah, I think that your gut bacteria have to eat them. Something that you don't digest. Yeah. So basically,
that's like the process of a banana ripening is going from non-digestible to digestible fiber. Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's why it tastes so bad.
It doesn't taste like it's ready. It tastes like it's not good because it's not ready to eat. Yeah. So, but it's ready for your gut bacteria to eat. So some people will do that. Personally, I never had the idea. It's like, didn't work for me. I wouldn't do that. But it's easier to find or like far more easily available in any country than Jerusalem artichokes, for example. So there's a couple of other common things, but those are the things that come to my mind: Jerusalem artichokes and raw bananas. or you can just take a supplement that has it in there. So I wonder if it's inulin that they put in there. I didn't check it out, but I'm sure it says somewhere. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that you were considering working with a friend of yours. Is that moving ahead? Like, what's going on with that?
I think you're talking about the Airbnb project.
Not that. I mean, we can talk about that too, but this other one, is like care or something.
Huh? I couldn't hear you. Oh,
Like,
yeah, no, that's not. He's just really busy, so we haven't really caught up. You know, he's like constantly out of the country. He's in Japan right now. So, yeah, so he's a very old friend of mine. We started out. I knew him because he like subletted a room of mine many years ago, back when I had roommates, and we would like leave for a month back to our respective countries and put our rooms on Craigslist. And my friend Mingyu Kim, or Korean names are like many Asian names. The family name comes first, so his Korean name is Kim Mingyu. But Mingyu is CEO of a company called Boksun Doga, and Doga basically means like house of, kind of. And Boksun was his grandmother's name. And Boksun Doga is a company that makes makgeolli, which is a Korean traditional rice wine, which is made by basically just fermenting rice and in water with something called, what's it called? It's not koji. It's like, no, koji is used for Japanese sake. Anyway, it's a traditional way of making rice wine, and he has started another business where they make like cosmetic products. So like face masks is, I think, the flagship starting product, but I think he's starting to branch into other things too. I think they're for sale on Amazon now, and it's a really good idea. I've seen a couple other brands. Like, I think there's a French brand of I think cosmetics is not exactly the right word. I want to say like skincare. Yeah. So what he's doing is skincare, not exactly cosmetics. And Korean skincare is really popular worldwide. But the idea is that he's using some of the byproducts of the fermentation process. Some of those things go into and are active ingredients in the masks. And, I've spoken to you before about my kind of journey where my friends and I started the first sort of Western style brewery in Korea, but, I came to feel like spending my energy and life helping people make and consume alcohol wasn't really where I wanted to be. And that's, yeah. So I did have spoken to him in the past about possibly helping him with this new side of the business. And we just haven't had a chance to get together again. So
he's the one who has always wanted to do something with you, like in business.
Yeah. He's a very good friend. He's kind of always been in my corner, always checking in on me. We're talking like probably 15 years. We've known each other basically since just before or just after we both started these respective businesses. And I mean, I was actually before he became my roommate, I was a customer of his. So he made this joke, like he used to have me in the phone, in his phone for years and years. And I think he kept it like this on purpose because it was funny, but it was like Hassan Kogegnim, like customer Hassan, because I had his product like at a nearby cafe, and I was never into makgeolli, and it was so delicious. I was really amazed, and I think I bought like a box. That's the only way they sold it back then, was like in a styrofoam box to have in my house to give to guests. And back then it was a very like handmade product. They still make it by hand, but it's like at scale in a large production facility now. And they had to change the recipe a little bit to make it stable. So I think they use some like non-sugar products. And back then it was like grassy, and the nature of makgeolli is that it's a fermented product and it continues to ferment. So like real handmade makgeolli will explode in your fridge, right? Like if it's in a plastic bottle, it's like still fermenting, and then the bottle gets bigger, and then boom, you know. And so, like, to stabilize and to mass produce these things, they often have to change the nature of what it traditionally was. That's my layman's understanding. So, you know, they changed the recipe. I stopped really enjoying it that much, and for many years, I would kind of tease him like, "Hey, man, your product used to be really good." Um, but he's had a lot of success. He was the first sort of premium makgeolli on the market, and was famously served at like the Blue House, which is the Korean White House, at a official function, and then started to get even more
Was that
recognition after
before or
that.
after the drop in quality?
I think that was, I don't know. That's a good question. It was kind of early on in the journey. Um, but they're, you know, they export a little bit, maybe a lot, and you see his stuff everywhere, like at kind of like arts events. You know, he's like, it's the one to have for the most part. And they also have their own retail shops, like in very prominent locations. Like when you like there's two airports in Seoul. The biggest one is the like major international airport. They're not at that one, but there's another airport which is closer to town, which is the primary airport for domestic flights as well as like flights to Japan. It's called Gimpo. They have their own store there. Also, like when you get off the airport train from the international airport at Seoul Station, which is the biggest station in Korea, there's right when you come up the escalators, they have their own shop there. So it's like and also in like the city of Busan and other places. So he's doing really well, and yeah. But I think there might be even more potential for him in this other business, which I'm sure is what he thinks as well. That's why he started it. But yeah, I have seen at least one like French brand that uses byproducts of winemaking to make like skincare products, and I think it's like a good story, you know. But yeah, if
So, so I think I missed this. He's using the byproducts of that to make these skin products?
yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about the production process of the. I think at this
Mm.
point, the face masks might be like OEM products, uh, and he started out like creating them. My understanding is he started out making them just as gifts, and so he put like he asked these OEM production facilities to put in like more of the active ingredients and then sort of the normal um, like business model would suggest, and they told him like, this is too much, it's too expensive, and he said like, you know, no, I just wanted, this is just, he would give them away, you know, to customers and things like that. But yeah, the answer is that I'm not exactly sure exactly how they're using the
Have you
byproducts.
ever tried the
That's the
face masks,
storytelling.
or do you know people who've
Yeah,
actually tried
I've
them?
tried them, and you know, I'm not really a judge, but I started, you know, he's very generous. He's always giving me, "Oh, do you have an event, or are your friends doing anything? Let me," or you know, just if I travel. When I traveled to Pakistan last time, I took half of a suitcase full of face masks, and
Mhm.
people love them. They're like, you know, people who are really into Korean cosmetics or skincare have said like, "Oh, you know, I've used a lot of masks, and these are really great." So he's definitely onto something. 'Cause, you know, I'm not
So can you
telling
send
people
me?
like, "Hey, you know, give me good
Yeah.
feedback or
No,
something." I'm just, "Hey,
it's,
these are gifts."
hopefully they don't also drop in quality. You should like buy them all up right now before it gets super popular and
The Korean
industrialized.
skincare, like, market.
What's the name of it? This, like, I'm starting to feel like people are going to think we're like trying to sell these products, and like we have no connection to them. But anyway,
Yeah,
some people just
it's
want to.
just, you know, when you live in a place long enough, I've been in Korea, in Seoul for 20 years, you start to meet and know people and have
Box
relationships.
yoga, box
Boksundoga. Boksun.
box yoga.
Boksondoga. I don't even know
So
if it
like
is available for sale on
where
Amazon right
well,
now. Huh?
so Box Doga brings up his rice winery, but it's the same brand name for the face
That's a
masks.
good question. I believe it is, and like I said, I don't know if it's available on Amazon at the moment. Let me
Yeah, I think it
also
is.
try and pull it
It
up.
looks like that. Yeah, I found it.
Yeah.
They're not super expensive either.
Oh, I couldn't.
I don't see it on Amazon, but let me see. I wonder if he actually ships worldwide. Yeah, I'm not. Oh, here, Amazon Korean face.
I see it on Haider.com. I don't know what that is. And there's seems like there's someone selling them on eBay. But yeah, maybe it's not on
I don't see it on Amazon. Yeah.
They were on Amazon at one point, but yeah, I don't know.
Did you give Vijala some of these, or
Probably
was that
did.
something else?
I think I probably did.
And so that's cool. I wonder, you know, with these kind of people, right? Like who like start off with something like amazing, and like with the wine, and then it goes into like a, you know, wider production, and they have to like make changes to just make it possible to. So like I've always wondered, like people who make these great products,
this
like
is what we talked about last time, right? A little bit related to the conversation we had last time about, you know, my friend Matt who makes pizza.
Yeah. So I mean, with this, like I've, you know, like Jala, my wife, she will try to find like cosmetics and stuff that are all natural. And like in the past, it was pretty almost impossible to find stuff that was truly all natural with no chemicals at all. And I always thought it was because like if they show you the ingredients list, you just be like, I can just make that myself. Those are just all. But I mean, it's probably not exactly that. But usually you would find different like preservatives and all kinds of like chemicals, right? And the reason
you have to go to a farmer's market, basically.
Yes. And I guess one of the reasons is that like the stuff just goes bad, like it doesn't last that long. And people with cosmetics who are buying it, you know, on Amazon or whatever, they don't expect it to have to like put it in the fridge or like have to use it in like a month, you know. They expect to like it should just work like everything else.
You know, it's not going to sit in the warehouse with Amazon if it's they won't.
And also that, right? Like it's got to have a shelf life before it gets to the customer. It's got to like sit there for a while. And
we had the same problem with Magpie beer, right? It's like craft beer in the States is cold chained. Like there's a system that exists where it's in a fridge at the production facility at the brewery. It's in a refrigerated truck, then it goes into a fridge at the bar. But in Korea, like that system doesn't exist. Everything is mass produced.
I can't believe it doesn't exist in Korea. Like I can understand.
No, I mean because it's just in Korea, beer was a ultra pasteurized product, right? So like the bars, they just serve. They serve. The kegs sit on the floor behind the bar, and then they go into like what's called a chiller, which is like it rapidly, you know, it's got these, what are they called? These rapid chilling systems is basically cold water next to. Yeah, okay, cold water next to.
It's like the last mile problem. Like they had cold chain for like ice cream, but not to a bar.
They had cold chain for certain premium grocery products, but you know, of course, that system didn't exist nationwide for every, you know, at the scale that was necessary for craft beer. And then, yes, like basically the problem for craft beer became, how do I convince someone who's building a new bar to put in a fridge? Because like for someone who's already got their system and everything, like sometimes you can't, it doesn't even fit, or the bar would not even be tall enough to put the fridge underneath it. Like, you know, yeah. So that was our first 10 years.
Anyway, what I was getting at was that like I often wondered people who had like really amazing products, but they had like these, you know, things in them that I wouldn't want to put on my face. I always wondered if they made like a version for themselves that was like pure, you know. So I wonder if it's the same with a face mask, because if there's like a version that he uses or his wife uses, a version that he sells. Like before you put in
with the rice wine, you know, I'm sure there's of course there's stuff that takes a lot longer to ferment that you can't make commercially viable, that's like, you know, very premium, etc., that is only for, you know, is either sold very, very expensive or isn't sold at all. I know he told me, he's like, oh, this bottle of something, like we didn't even used to sell this because like it's too hard to make, it takes too long, etc. You'd have to charge too much, you know. So like probably that is just for the family / their friends or special occasions, or, you know.
Yeah, this, I don't think we talked about this last time, but it reminds me of this thing that I realized recently when I started looking into AI, which is that, and I might have told you about this too, because I've been telling everyone about AI, and my experiences with it. But basically what I realized was like the customer facing SaaS products, they're limited by like, $50 a month or maybe $200 a month, right? Like anything beyond that, like what that means is they're limited in what they can provide you, right? Like the sources they can use. So like I'm looking to develop like a content generation pipeline that's like kind of automated, that just hands me all the sourcing and all the quotes and all the pieces for an article that I just can like put together. Like it does all the research for me, and what I realized was that when you try to build something like that, you find out that like to get access to like every magazine on the planet or every newspaper or every book or whatever, you have to go to a university or a giant newsroom that employs thousands of people, and they pay like $100,000 a year for it, right? To get full access to anything they want to look at.
JSTOR or something.
Yes, yeah. And beyond that, there's like all kinds of like APIs that you would use to try to, like, for example, there's an API, a bunch of them that are specific to like research. And the way they're helpful is you can like go in and find out who are like the top 10 people who are publishing on a certain topic. You might find a paper, and then those things will give you like all their connections, and you create like kind of like a tree, like more than a tree, just like a interweaving like web of how all these people are connected to each other. And so you can easily find like, okay, this person's interesting, I can't reach him, but like he's connected to this other person and other people. And so that plus just other things like you like for this thing, I wanted to be able to find people and then, find out where they work and try to get like a bio on them and maybe like email them, get some like, response. So like all this data is in certain places. And if you wanted to get access to resell it, either they wouldn't give it to you at all, or it would be prohibitively expensive to get like a reseller license. But if you're just using it for yourself, they have like API limits, right? Like rate limits. You can't like query the database like 1,000 times a minute, but you can do it like 100 times a minute. And it's like, well, that's way more than enough for any one person or company to create as much content as they could possibly desire. So the thing that I thought was that, these like the really cutting edge tools, they exist. You just don't know they exist, right? So like when I went looking for like something like this on the market, like I signed up for like something called deepwriter.com, which is like a AI writer, and I was just like playing around, like how good can the AI writing get? And this guy was like hyping it up so much, right? Like he was like, it's the best on the planet. Like it ranks at the top of every like, the benchmarks and whatever. And I go try it, and it's like, I give it all the stuff, I'm like, write me up. I wanted to like research something, right? Like there was an investment that I wanted to learn about. And so I gave it all the information I had, and it goes and like it's sitting there spinning its wheels for like 30 minutes, and it spits out something that was like worse than what I was able to cobble together myself with ChatGPT. Okay. So I had gone to ChatGPT and I just kind of like had a back and forth conversation with it and just like on and on and on. And I got way better output from that than this thing did, taking 30 minutes, like supposedly doing whatever behind the scenes. And like, if you try to write like a novel or something, right, with AI, it's just not possible. And the problem is not that it couldn't do it. The problem is that no one has created like a superstructure around the prompts where like first you go to the AI and you're like, let's brainstorm, a certain story. And then you're like, okay, now come up with like the plot for the whole book, and then come up with like the chapters and what happens in each chapter, right? Once you have all of that structure, you can just go chapter by chapter, right? Like the AI can write like a portion of a chapter, and then you just kind of like have to remember where your characters have been, where they're going, where they're supposed to go next in the next chapter, and all of that. And so like once I started thinking about like how would you actually construct something like that, like a research pipeline to enable like better writing, or like to give you the power of like 100 research assistants, right? So you don't have to do a lot of legwork yourself. I just realized that like this stuff has to exist, because like I'm not a programmer, I'm not a technical person. And I was able to like, once I started looking at what's actually available out there for example, to like mimic somebody's voice, like how they sound when they write, like if it was worth it to, like if you were like Stephen King or who is it, like Patterson or something, like
James
Patterson
Patterson,
publishes like, yeah, he publishes like
a
so
book a
many books
year,
a year.
more than a book a year.
More. He has a bunch of different like, characters and stuff like Alex Cross. I don't know, like you see them on like newsstands all the time. It's not just one series. Like he has a bunch of ongoing series, right? At the
So
same
it's just
time.
understood that he has ghostwriters or something.
Yes, it is understood. But my point is that like if they spent like maybe $1 million training an AI on his writing, it would be better than a ghostwriter. It would sound just like he wanted it to sound, come up with probably better ideas and better plots and whatever, and then have like a recursive loop where it's like getting trained further and further. So like if I had to guess, I would say that he probably spent the $1 million, or his publisher spent the $1 million in the last year or two, or they will soon, especially as the prices come down. So like $1 million is to get to like the top of like where it's almost like you can't distinguish. But so this blows your mind, right? Like I was doing some research, and like people have already cloned their voice, like short story writers and stuff, and article writers have cloned their voice without the $1 million version of is the top of the line. Make it sound as close as possible based on your previous corpus of writing.
But
and then there's
I want to slow you down.
versions.
So you're saying that you think that when you said these things must exist, you're saying that someone is creating, and we talked about this offline too, someone's creating like B2B software that is maybe going around the $100,000 access to JSTOR or whatever.
Yeah, because you can actually bypass it illegally, and that it's like actually pretty easy. Like you just Google how to do it, and like all the information's there. Like the AI will build you like 90% of the ability, and then you just hire a programmer for the last like 10%, like a few pieces, which like it's all available online how to do it. Like it's just the AI will refuse to wire up the last little bits to help you bypass any paywall. But like bypassing paywalls is like a solved problem for AI. It's not actually that hard. So I mean, it doesn't take tremendous hacking.
This is a tangent, but what does this mean for like the industry of content?
I mean, like in the past, like let's just back up a little bit, right? Like you and I remember, like we came of age during this time when like we used to stream.
Yeah, we started using Napster,
and then there were like torrents, and there's still torrents, right? And like all this stuff, right? And then everyone was just like, why bother, right? Like I'll just
pay Spotify's whatever, 10 or 12 bucks or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that no one was used to paying for anything online, right? And then everyone kind of got used to it. Now everyone's totally used to it, right? Like we don't mind paying $5, $10, even $20 a month for access to something, so that we don't have to go on a torrent website and search and be like, oh, that one's in Russian, this one doesn't look that good, the audio and this, the video is not synced right, like you remember all that stuff, right? And like it's all available still. Like I went on one of these torrent websites recently, and there's like Hollywood quality stuff that's like up there, but it might not be everything you want, right? It's like, oh, that video is like playing in theaters right now and it's right here for free, but this other one is not there yet, or whatever, or it's only like a shaky camera version, right? Like those old ones.
I still can't believe people are in theaters with cameras. It's like, what is this web of people around the world who are motivated by uploading camera videos? It's incredible.
Yeah, like it's free. I don't know what do they.
They must get paid. There must be some advertising or something on these sites.
There must. You know what it is?
Must be ads.
It's probably hackers inputting like some sort of like virus in these things that you don't know about. So you really don't want to know about them.
Yeah.
So anyway, like getting on your computer and like searching for So there's so many scary things that are enabled by AI, right? Like I think it's already happened, right? Because you clone the voice, you go and like kind of like hack their accounts, and you figure out like all this stuff about them and like their relationships, and then you call up somebody with the voice of their grandma, like I need help, send me some money, I'm stuck in Mexico or whatever, right? Like so yeah, like people are going to have like safe words that they decide on away from all technology, like nowhere near their phone or their computer. to be sure that you're talking to, you know, the person, or you, like you call, even calling them back, right? Like people say like hang up and call them back. Even that can be rerouted. They can hack your phone. Like one of my friends, I just got in touch with him. He has this billion-dollar company, I think, maybe it's worth even more now. And his main business is like selling super secure phone lines, like cell phone lines to like big shots, basically. And like it's not like something that normal people will usually do, but like these big shots, they basically, you go to like the cell phone company and you just like bribe somebody and they like send your phone call to somebody, and like your two-factor authentication. It's not actually that safe. Like you can get it hacked at the phone company level and it goes to somebody else's phone, right? So, you know, it's safe for the 99%, but the 1% are willing to pay pretty big bucks. It's not even that expensive, but like people can afford it. It might be 50 or 100 or $200. You know, it's just like an extra that most people don't need. But
How are
yeah.
they secured?
Yeah, this is a good, I don't remember. Like he probably explains it on his website, his videos and stuff, but I think he basically has like his own private network or something. So yeah, like he had to spend some money, create some infrastructure. And so like it's basically like
So nobody else has access to those numbers. Nobody can be
no
bribed
one
to do.
else has access. And then there must be even a further level of like safety where like his people are unbribable, or he built some it impossible, just like how it's designed, that like there's no person that you can bribe to change it or something, like probably something to do with encryption or something that like locks it to a certain device, or I don't know. So I don't know how he did it, but he did it well enough, you know, that people are willing to pay for it. It's like a level of security beyond what they can get with a regular phone number. But yeah, I
That's
think
cool. A cool idea.
it's not a regular phone number. It is like a phone number that's run through his company. So he, I guess, if I remember correctly, like, you know, like these MVNOs or whatever they're called, the mobile phone operator, like
Yeah.
they lease lines from, you know, Verizon and AT&T. So I think that's what his company might do that, but then like your phone is connected to his company first, and in some secure way that is unhackable. So it can't be transferred to somebody else. And so, yeah, like people, I think it literally happened to him. That's why he built it. His first business was selling, he was one of the pioneers in like those Bitcoin ATMs. And then he sold that business. And then he started this because it literally happened to him. Somebody stole his 2FA, two-factor authentication, and like got access to like one of his accounts or something, and he lost money, or, you know, it was like a big deal and it was a huge headache. And he discovered, he like had no idea that this thing even existed until it happened to him. And then he found out it was like a problem for people. And then he was just like, it must be solvable. Let's solve it, you know? And he solved it and figured out how to do that, which was like
They call that going founder mode.
yeah. You're like, how do I fix this? So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to realize that they can go founder mode now, right? Like with AI, what it enables, it really makes it like, I didn't send you this, but like yesterday, I literally in 2 minutes made like the MVP, the minimum viable product, like a working version of a video feedback form. Okay. That like detects the light if there's enough light on your face, and if there's not, it tells you that there's not. It like checks your audio is good, right? It I made it overly complicated. I added all these things. It has like an on-screen like questions to like guide you in giving the feedback. You go next, you know, and the next thing is to make it swipeable. It has a little thing for your face. It detects if your face is centered. Okay. Like AI put this up on my website in like 2 minutes. It was insane. And then it was just like, then I went to ChatGPT. I was like, the interface sucks and it's not like designed properly. And it's like, everything is on one screen, you know, it's supposed to be like multiple screens. And ChatGPT is like, yeah, tell your AI this. And then I plugged that into the AI, and then it like fixed everything and made it a little bit better. And so there's like an iteration process. And then I started using it, and then it crashed. And I was like, okay, now fix this. And then it fixed it. And so like, it's not perfect right out of the box, but like just even the version 1 would have been literally impossible for me a week ago, before I realized the power of these things, like what you can create, right? And the most powerful thing about that is that like, fine, like maybe I can't get it to like production quality that I would want to actually put on my website, because like for production quality software, it's not just making sure there's no bugs and like user testing it, but then it's like beyond that, you have to like test it on every single device and every single, phone and operating system and everything, make sure it's compatible everywhere. And then like, there's no bugs in any of those. And so it's like, that's why software is hard. But the thing is that for like individuals, right, who might have a business, almost every business nowadays, even like a plumber, electrician, anyone, right? There's a lot of possibility to automate in your business, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? If it crashes, you can just ask the AI to fix it. Like, you're not selling it, you're just using it for yourself, right? And so if it's good enough and it just, it doesn't crash much and it has the right output, like people, like it's insane how much people pay for automations that are now like, you can just tell the AI to make the automation. Like the automations used to be, before this OpenClaw kind of revolution, were very customized and hard to string together. Like you had to go and learn how to do this stuff. And now the AI just strings all that technology that's available together for you, right? So as long as you can describe what you want to happen, it can just make it happen. And so like the key distinguishing feature is being able to really understand what my problem is. So it's not just like you could say, for example, most people have this problem. I have it huge, is like inbox management. Like you don't even want to open your email, right? It just gets more and more full of junk mail, right? Especially if you have to open it for your job. It's just like a super headache. And like, there are solutions out there, but they are terrible, right? So like, you can start working on that and like train the AI, and like with current basically free technology, you really get it to the point where it's very, very, very good, and you can build that yourself now, right? But people pay for.
You mean having the AI go into your inbox, identify the things that you don't need to see and deleting them? And
so I wouldn't delete them, right? So what you do is you have it label them, right, in the beginning, right? And you don't have it change anything, right? And you tell it like, if you make any changes anywhere, there's always a backup so that we can roll it back and all this stuff. So you have all these guardrails, these permissions, like it's not allowed to do, certain things. So basically in the training wheel phase, you're just like, okay, go in and put labels to the things you think I don't need to read and what I should read, right? And when you start thinking about it, this was my point actually that I kind of lost track of for a second. What a lot of people go to AI and do is they say, build me inbox management software so I don't have to see spam and I only see what I want to see. Like even that, they don't go even that far. They just say like, build me inbox management software, right? Okay, like that's what most people would say, something like that, right? Very vague, not very specific, right? And that doesn't get good results, right? It's just kind of like a generic thing that one shots and it's like, I'm going to try to filter spam for this guy, right? However, it comes up with to do that. Now, that is like way too vague. And I think that the problem is that people have this, and I'm probably repeating myself, I said the same thing last time. They think that the AI is like super powerful because they've asked these simple questions and it spits out a perfect answer. But then they also think that it's not good enough to like do really complicated things because they ask the same simple style question expecting a perfect answer for something more complicated. And like complicated things, just like a human being, just like a software development team, are step-by-step processes. And the AI is not that good at like the long-term plans yet. It's getting there. And the OpenClaw thing actually makes it easier because it has built-in memory and it can do plans and it can spin up like multiple agent teams and like kind of quote unquote hire people by spinning up sub agents beneath like each of the, project managers of different aspects of the project. So, but, basically if you can learn how to like actually query yourself first is like, okay, how do I think about managing my inbox, right? Like when I go through my inbox right now, what is it that tells me, like, for example, like I started thinking about it and I was like, how would I build that? I'm literally going to try to build it for myself, right? Because it's so easy now. I'm not going to hire somebody. I'm just going to try it myself. And that's how you learn how to do this stuff is you just start trying. And it's so easy to start trying now. It's like literally if you're stuck, you just ask the AI, what do I do now? Like I'm stuck here. What do I do next? And you can like show it your screen and crazy. So, I was like, okay, one rule would be if I've ever replied to this person, then I probably want to see what they have to say this time, right? And if I've never, ever replied to the person, ever, I probably don't want to see what they have to say. If I've never even opened an email from the person, then we can be pretty sure I don't, especially if they've been emailing me long enough, like for 5 years, as some people have. Like, hello, Gmail. Like, it's not that hard, right? Like, and what you understand from that, since it's not that hard to make a rule like that, is that Gmail doesn't want to upset the people who are trying to get into your inbox, right? Like, they don't want to upset people who are, marketing to you. And so a lot of these companies, they're getting it from two sides, right? They have users, but you're not actually paying them. You are the product. Hello, like you are being sold to the marketing people, right? So that's the problem that people don't understand, is like these companies have, most of them, where you're using the thing for free, have zero incentive to make it better for you, to the point where, like, to get rid of your pain points. That they just need to get rid of enough that you stay on their product, right? So like, they need you doom scrolling just enough so that you come back for more, right? And not so much that you go and kill yourself, basically. That's the worst way to say it, but like, that's basically, what it is.
Yeah. I've been seeing, just, anecdotally, I've been seeing a lot more content around people de-Googling themselves. And it makes a lot of sense. I probably should get off of Gmail.
I was thinking about this the other day, that like, in different like religious traditions, there's idea of like the Antichrist, the end of time, and some of the narrations of it, they have these like magical powers, right? But when you think about human history, right, like there's no magic here, right? But like, for somebody 1,000 years ago, what we're doing is magical, right? Like talking to somebody in a different country, or flying,
You're literally like,
phone,
you have a demon who's making stuff for you.
Yeah, I mean, that it's crazy. Demon, literally, they call them daemons or whatever, DAEMON, these little like programs in the computers. So yeah, everyone's gonna have a demon. I have called my AI, like I've named it after like an archangels, right? Like I'm gonna have like a Gabriel and like a Michael and stuff. So trying to get away from the whole demon thing. But yeah, what was I gonna say about that? I'm going to say something about this concept of,
well, that brings me to,
right? Is that like, I think that like, if the Antichrist is going to come and have these magical powers, is going to be because of AI. And the scary thing, is from that book, how you can like hack the human mind, right? Like there, like you can hack the visual cortex. There are all these like visual illusions that can like trick you into seeing things that aren't actually there, right? And so if that exists for the visual cortex, what about the, the language center of the brain, right? Can like an AI come up with some sort of like sounds or like sequence of real English words that like convince you? And like, if it know, and that, this is what scared me, right? Like, how is it going to know enough about you to like brainwash you super, super fast? It's going to be because you told it everything, because you've been online, and like Google knows everything about you, and like it can data mine your entire life, right? Like the NSA probably, listens to every single phone call, right? Like this was something we saw in a Will Smith movie like 30 years ago. Even then it was probably happening. Now we know for sure after Snowden that it was happening, or it is happening, right? And like, this has been going on for 30 years. Like, imagine what the capabilities are now. So like, literally everything you've ever said to anyone, since everyone's carrying a phone around in their pocket all the time, is going to be in the AI. Like they will know so much about you, right? Every single thing you ever write or say in your whole life will be used to train like a model of what this person is going to do next, how they think, how to convince them of anything.
Oh my God.
Scary.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
And you're not even going to know what's happening. That's the scariest thing, right? You're going to be slowly guided to like become somebody else over the course of years based on what it shows you, right? Like it's already happening. They've already proved it, right? Facebook did this like study on people that like they got all this flack for because they didn't tell anyone. And they were able to like make people happier or sadder based on like what they showed them in the timeline, which is just obvious, right? Like if you show a bunch of like people being blown up, people are going to be kind of down for the day, right? And if you show a bunch of happy-go-lucky stuff, people are going to be happier. And so it's not even that hard, right? Like to change somebody's mood. And then if you just do it really subtly, over the course of years, you can guide people to believe whatever you want, And it's not, what people don't realize, I'm writing about this now, I've written about it before, is this, it's a philosophical concept called the Hegelian dialectic. And so like the idea is that, I think it was a way that he came up with for like analyzing ideas and things and opposing ideas, for example, I guess. I haven't read that much about it, but the main point is that in his, analytical framework, you take like what is it, a hypothesis and a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis, right? And so the idea is that neither the thesis or the antithesis are actually true. They have like aspects of truth in them, okay? But they're not wholly true. And even taking the truth from both of them and combining it doesn't create the whole truth either. Like the whole truth is something that's like orthogonal or right angle. It's like in a different universe or dimension from those two things. Okay. It's just like a way of thinking about it to kind of like make it sound cooler, I guess. And so this is used as like it's going to sound crazy, like tinfoil conspiracy theorist, but like this is basically how the world works, where you have opposing ideas that seem to be completely opposite, and like both sides are completely deeply convinced that they're true. Okay, so there's many examples of this, right? It's all over the place, like vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, like trending on Twitter right now. There's like studies showing, and this is what I was writing earlier, like a tweet about this. I don't think I've published it yet, but basically, I published a version of this earlier. Basically, the position of the anti, and both of them, like what they don't realize is that there's some truth in both sides. And I personally am an anti-vaxxer. I mean, you can put that label on me because I don't take vaccines. I don't give them to my kids, and I don't think anyone should take them. But my point here is that like for it is different than most anti-vaxxers' reasons for it. And some people might have the same reason, but it is different. And it's specifically, importantly, the reason for it is something that like in the broader society is completely outside the Overton window of like discourse that's allowed, right? Like no one on either side would ever consider saying anything like this publicly, because it would just be like, ridiculed, essentially, right? So like this synthesis is usually something that is like unsayable. Like you can't say it in polite society, or it's something that's like, something that Aristotle believed, but we don't believe anymore because we're like rational human beings, whatever, right? Or something that, people believe in,
Can you give an example?
God and stuff. Yeah. So here in the vaccine, anti-vaccine, so the pro-vaxxers, or so let's start with the anti-vaxxers. The anti-vaxxers, their position is that like vaccines are harmful, and we have enough data to prove it. And the way that the system works is you have a mainstream view and sometimes, right, a mainstream, or sometimes it's just two opposing views, but usually like one side gets adopted by the mainstream. So for example, like kind of this woke culture was adopted by the Democrats and the Republicans didn't kind of adopt it. And it kind of like goes back and forth, which side is kind of like in charge of like the conversation or the media, right? And maybe it's shifting more back to the Republicans now, away from the whole woke thing, right? They're trying to like take back that. But like the Republicans and the Democrats, vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, all of these are false dichotomies, and they're used to control people, or at least whether or not somebody's doing it purposefully, it's very convenient and it just works out that way, right? To like create this opposition between the two sides. And so for the anti-vaxxers, basically it's not true that we have incontrovertible evidence. And what's trending right now is from the McCullough Foundation, a study showing that like, kids who are vaccinated in the first 13 months of life or something are like, so much more likely to die or to have illnesses or whatever, right? And on the face of it, it's like extremely convincing. You're like, oh my God, like they're like 300% more likely. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it doesn't matter if it's biased or whatever. Like, it's just so obvious, right? And so the issue with it is that the studies aren't like, if you break them down from like a statistical perspective, if you're actually a statistician, epidemiologist, it's very obvious that like they're not proven. It's not proof, and I'll explain why. And so they are used. Those kinds of studies are used by the mainstream to discredit anyone who brings them up in conversation, right? Any anti-vaxxer, RFK, anyone who's like, look, we have some evidence, and this is the best evidence we have. We don't have any other evidence, and what we do have is pretty convincing, right? What's available to us seems to be convincing, and there's like a way that it could work, right? Like there are toxins and like heavy metals and all kinds of chemicals and things in the vaccines. Maybe that's what's doing it. Who knows? Like we don't know why, but some signal is there. And so the mainstream epidemiologists would be like, yeah, sorry, like that's not good enough. The data's not good enough, and they'll tear it apart, right? And rightfully so. And the reason is that there are forms of bias in there that are very strong and that cannot be removed. And for example, we can start with like the really kind of like extreme version of the example, which is the Amish. They're so different from the rest of the mainstream United States. Like they eat different, they sleep different, they don't use any technology, there's no EMFs, they don't go to the doctor, they work all the time, they're physically fit. They're a distinct race, right? Like they're racially distinct. They're basically all white. I don't know, maybe there's some others, but like, primarily all Caucasian from a certain area in Europe ancestrally, and culturally the same. And so like they're basically this extremely distinct group, and trying to like compare like a epidemiological study where they weren't like randomized or anything, right? It was just like, okay, look, the Amish have no they never get vaccinated and they don't get sick. Okay, well, maybe they don't get sick because they're just super healthy to begin with, right? And they never go to the doctor either. Like some of these things you can't even say in the mainstream discourse, that like modern medicine is actually causing harm. Like I'm sure of it, whether it's from vaccines or from like medications that like cover up symptoms and stuff. And so again, there's no proof, but it's like a worldview, right? So it's like a theory might be healthier beyond the vaccine. So even because it's kind of like similar to the vaccine argument that like it's modern medicine that's harming them or not harming them because they don't use it. But like, sunlight, fresh air, work all day, sleep good all night, eat healthy food, eat from the fruit, fruit of your labor and the land and all that, right? Totally different. And it turns out that like basically anti-vaxxers as a group, not just including the Amish, but like all of them are distinctly different. Like they're probably more likely not to homeschool, right? So like, first of all, they're not even going to be exposed to these diseases. Like a lot of the illnesses that you're showing are like totally different in, vaxxed versus unvaxxed. So like more likely to homeschool. I homeschool, we homeschool, right? A lot of anti-vaxxers homeschool because they don't trust anything, not just vaccines. They don't trust the establishment anywhere, right? So they don't go to the doctors, right? So like they're not going to show up in data sets where like a doctor is like comparing vaxxed versus unvaxxed. Okay, like one second, I'm going to close my window. So there's just a lot of differences. They eat different. They're probably more likely to eat organic and to cook at home and on and on and on, right? More likely to, and also they might have cultural differences. So they're a distinct cultural and even maybe racially distinct from people who tend to vaccinate, right? So, for example, maybe more Black people vaccinate. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into all the details, but I know for sure that the two groups are distinct enough that you can't get rid of the bias between them. So like let's just come up with an example of why a vaccinated kid might die, and it might not be the vaccine that killed them, right? And it might even happen right after a vaccine, right? Like what would make that more possible? So like you go in for a well visit, you get a vaccine, right? You go in for like a very sick visit, you usually don't get a vaccine. You go in for like a little bit sick visit and they might give you the vaccine, right? Some of the little bit sick visits, the mild illnesses are actually the beginning of a serious illness. You just don't know it yet, right? It's just starting. And so they just happen to go get a shot at the beginning of this illness that's going to become very serious anyway, regardless of what happened with the shot or not. And then they die, right? They got the shot temporally associated with that death because they went to the doctor for their mild illness. Okay. And since they were there, they were like, oh, you're up for your shot. Not that sick. We'll give it to you. Okay. So that's just something I came up with off the top of my head. I didn't even go and research it or anything, right? I was just like, how could it be possible that there could be bias and blah, blah, blah? And there's probably 100 other ways that it could happen, that there would be a very close temporal link, whatever, between vaccines and deaths. And other links, right? Like vaccines and like chronic disease, because like sicker kids tend to go to the doctor, and they try to control for these biases, right? They do their best. And my point is that like you can't control for structural biases when the two groups are totally different. Like it's just not possible. Like you can control for some bias, and even that's not perfect. But at the end of the day, like the other thing, like some of these kids who are from anti-vaccine, anti-vaxxer families, like my kids do get sick, but no one knows it. Like they don't tell anyone. They just give them herbs and, tell them to sleep, and they don't care. They're like, they don't make a big deal out of it. And all the other, kids who get vaccinated, they're much more likely to use the doctor, right? That's another characteristic of the group, the difference in the groups, like this, like the utilization of the healthcare is far more. So it could be vaccines. Absolutely. Could vaccines be killing people? Yes. But like the point is, we just don't have hard proof. Like when you try to actually prove something, I used to think that like in the soft sciences, like psychology and stuff, obviously like it's very hard to prove things because it's kind of wishy-washy measure stuff. But it actually turns out it's nearly impossible, if not impossible, to literally prove anything, even in the hard sciences, even in physics. Like we have never actually, like there's a great book on this. It's called The Golem, I think, and another one that was after that, but I think The Golem was the first one, where he goes through like the speed of light and a bunch of other like things that are just like assumed to be like absolutely proven. And he explains how like the first experiment they did, they were like, somebody was like, because in the beginning no one believed it, right? They had to like prove it to everyone and shift like the mainstream consensus. And so like the people would come and like tear apart the experiment. They would be like, oh, the room wasn't isolated. Maybe there was a little bit of shaking, and maybe this, you need a better material to like hold it still, and it doesn't, heat up, and it doesn't vibrate, and all these things, okay, that they would come up with. Real world, when you're designing an experiment to measure something, they're like constraints to what it's possible to actually measure. Like it depends on the instrument, right? Like you need an instrument to measure something that happens. And the instrument itself, you can never perfect it in the real world, right? So like you're trying to like measure something more and more and more and more closely to see if it even exists in the first place. And you have like imperfect instruments, and people like basically they never ended up proving it beyond zero doubt, right? There was no way to physically create something for these very famous experiments that changed like the belief of every scientist eventually. And so like his point was that it didn't change because we found proof. It changed because everyone just kind of started to believe it. And it kind of made sense, that's why they still call all these things theories, right? Like they fit all the evidence, and they help us find new scientific theories that also seem to do things that are useful in the real world, and they're practical and they work, right? We have GPS, and we have all this stuff that just like works. But from like a information science perspective, or from like a theory of science perspective, there could be a completely different underlying model of reality that has nothing to do with what we think it has to do with, right? Has nothing to do with how we think quantum physics works, or how we think, the speed of light works, or anything. It could be like this completely alien world behind that has the same manifestation, but a completely different structure, right, than what we imagine it to be. So anyway, my point here was that like it's basically impossible, even in the hardest of hard sciences, to come up with a really rigorous proof of anything that like absolutely proves it beyond any doubt. So what can you imagine in the case of, something like epidemiology or something, where like there's so many confounders, you will never run out of them, right? You can always argue against it. And one of my main points here is that it's not that the mainstream has better evidence. They they illogically basically, cast aspersions against, the bad evidence when it's, against them, and they accept it when it's for them, right? And they get to get away with that because they are the mainstream and they're in charge of the media and whatever, right? And the truth is something that's completely separate. And one of like the ways of thinking of it from my perspective is that, the mainstream, like they have this idea that there's like a naturalistic fallacy, that like you're making an argument about like how nature is supposed to work based on like, these wishy-washy ideas of like, metaphysics and how God created the universe, and like how if it's natural, it's good, and if it's unnatural, it's bad, and like, this kind of stuff. And I don't think it's actually a fallacy, right? Like I think it's actually true, but it's not something that you can like talk about on ESPN, right? You can't debate a pro-vaccine or an anti-vaccine, person on those grounds, right? It's just not acceptable, right? Like we've moved beyond it as a culture. We don't believe it anymore, right? Our ancestors believe this kind of stuff, and we think it's like, it's not real. Like our science has moved beyond it. And you can, if you're well informed enough and you are good enough at explaining it, I think you can kind of fit naturalism or this idea into a scientific kind of framework and say that like, actually it's not completely ascientific. Like a lot of the things that people consider are scientific are actually not scientific to begin with, right? And a lot of things that they think are not scientific actually are perfectly, scientific. Like they're perfectly valid theories of reality. You don't even have to like, invoke metaphysics that you can't, even test, but they're just not acceptable, right? It's in like there's just no like with current understanding of science, it's like, well, telepathy, like we have no way of explaining how it could happen, so it must be impossible, like a lot of these things, right? Which doesn't mean that they're not possible. It just means that like you don't know how they could be possible, right? And so like we don't even look in those directions because we just make the assumption that based on what we know, it can't be possible, as though we know everything about the way reality works. And like I don't think we'll ever know everything about the way reality works. Like it's just infinite. We already consider it to be quite complex, and it's far more complex than anyone actually even imagines, I think. What we don't know is more than what we know. I think it'll always be like that.
Do you think that I don't know even really how to ask this question, but okay, first I wanted to kind of summarize, because you were saying the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and so the synthesis, one of the things that is orthogonally related, or that you can't talk about in polite society about vaccines, is this idea that, I mean, could you summarize that again? What is it that you think is the sort of the truth that can't be said there?
That yeah, I didn't explain that very well. So the idea was the natural list kind of argument that like vaccines themselves are just like, they fundamentally can't be good for you, right? Because they're this like unnatural intervention, essentially, right? You're like the kind of like philosophical perspective that I have and Shabazz has is that, and it's kind of like you could like look at it through the lens of evolutionary theory, for example, to kind of like fit it into like a scientific kind of framework. So like in evolution, the organism evolves like with its environment, right? And so like everything it needs is in that environment, right? It evolved to find all of its needs in the environment, and the environment itself needs the organism, right? They're like codependent, basically. They're interdependent. And so it's like an ecosystem, essentially, that all works together. And so like the environment gives you inputs, right? In the form of sunlight, food, temperature, grounding, like electrons from the earth, all of these inputs. So if evolution is correct, all of the organism should be optimized to work optimally in that environment. And if you take it out of that environment and put it in like a space station orbiting the earth, it's not going to have natural sunlight, fresh air, electrons from the earth, when it's grounded. It's not going to have natural foods that like give it good health. And what we try to do is we're like, well, we don't need the natural stuff. We'll just make like artificial versions of it, right? Like we'll have like a sun lamp, or we'll take vitamin D because that's what sunlight gives you. And actually, like when
Very
you start,
mechanistic.
when you start to get really deep into it, even remaining mechanistic, there's like 1,000 other things sunlight does on your body. Like I wrote this article, I published it on Substack, pelvic congestion syndrome. And like there's a section on sunlight, and it blew my mind how much I could list there of what it does that is directly correlated to the pathogenesis of pelvic congestion syndrome, right? Like you can just basically pick any disease and you'll find like a whole page of things, like 15 different things, maybe even 30, that sunlight specifically does to hormones, like different wavelengths of sunlight, infrared, UVA, UVB, every single one is doing something very specific. Blue light, everything has a specific like action on your body to create hormones that affect that disease process. Okay. And, circadian rhythms and just melanin, melatonin, basic, probably like, I mean, it might be everything, right? Like, because everything is interrelated. Like, nothing is like isolated in the body. If you move any kind of lever, like the whole thing is affected, right? It's kind of like an interconnected web where if you push here, like your whole body is somehow affected by that, right? So if you change any pathway or you raise the levels of anything, there's a knock-on effect that just kind of like ripples throughout the entire organism, right? And so this is why you get side effects, because you're changing you're twirling a little knob. You're like, oh, this knob needs to be this way a little bit. You turn it, and then every other knob turns a little bit also. It's not just the one knob, because turning that one knob, there's a feedback loop where the body's like, oh, why is the knob turned that way? It's supposed to be over here. So the body tries to like create something else to like make it go back. And then, that creates, and it's still not going back. And that creates other problems, and it creates stress, and it creates changes everywhere. So I kind of got lost again, but yeah, the environment, right? So like the environment is information. You can boil it down to that, right? It's giving your body information, but it's like supercomputer level of information. It's so complicated, the information that you're getting. It's like you're getting a programming instruction from the environment, and then your body is assessing it and like digesting it and creating an output, which is good health or bad health or whatever, right? Happiness, unhappiness, right? Like, and it's all like cause and effect, but like it's such complex cause and effect that it's basically irreducibly complex. Okay. So like you cannot be optimally healthy if you're not in the environment you were evolved for. Like they go together. Okay. And it's just like, it just kind of makes sense, from an evolutionary perspective, or just, even if you believe in, intelligent design, if you find it that way, it makes sense. If you, just random particles bounce together and designed it that way, it also makes sense. Either way, it makes sense, whether you're a scientist or not. It should be obvious that like you're going to run into some serious problems if you go into this basically supercomputer of a brain and a body that you don't even understand to begin with, and you start to like fiddle around in the guts of it, right? Would you do that to a spaceship or a car, right? Would you, get into an F1 racing car if like your 5-year-old had been fiddling around in the engine before you got on the track? No way, right? You would not risk it for your life, right? Like no matter what, you would not do that. Yeah, people do it with their body all the time. They're just like, let's biohack today, right? Let's take a supplement and see what happens, because I convinced myself of a little story of how it works. Like you don't know the first thing about what it's doing to you. You understand like, 1 degree of 1 degree of 1 degree, like to the nth degree, like you barely understand anything about how it actually is going to affect you. So,
this I think it's worthwhile to talk to kind of illustrate this a little bit more, so that people who don't have any understanding or any exposure to this kind of idea get a little bit of a handle in the real world for what you're talking about. Like, one of the basically, I think my layman's, Dr. Haider, Mr. Haider, my layman's understanding is that, the modern medicine has been kind of like, and I would say 99.9% of the time with good intentions, and then more in the more recent decades with a profit motive, but like tinkering, like we've been tinkering with the body. And one of the ways you see that is, I think maybe like, what's a really good early example? I don't know. One that I found out about recently was bone density in older women, right? This is something that I learned from you, but I think most people don't know that the company that sell the pharmaceutical company that sells at least maybe the number one bone density supplements or medication, sorry, is also responsible for creating the bone density scanner machines that they put into doctors' offices all around the country for free. And so that doesn't mean that there's necessarily something corrupt happening,
Yeah, a lot
but
of them
there is
believe that, like, hey, we need to help people get the diagnosis so that their bone density
yeah.
can go up by taking the medicine, and like, why
But
aren't
just knowing that that
they're
the
not
people who give the doctor the free scanner
yeah.
are the ones who profit from the doctor prescribe or diagnosing low bone density, which requires a medication, should at least put some people's like antennas up, right?
How much
And
money are they
then
making if they can give that stuff
if they
away?
can give bone scanners away, but so then drill down a little bit more. Okay, what is it that their medication does? I ended up taking a very basic anatomy class in my single year of Chinese medicine school that I dropped out of.
Dr.
But
Haider
I
and
remember I remember learning about osteoclasts and osteoblasts, and one of them basically structures bone, and one of them like takes bone apart.
yeah.
And so someone said, "Hey, older people, they're having falls, they're breaking their hips. Maybe somebody like who's, we know people who got older, had a fall, and then their quality of life precipitously declined, and it led to a rapid death. Everyone knows you don't want to fall when you get old, right? And so someone said, hey, why don't we just turn off the I don't remember what they are, the osteoclast or the osteoblast, whatever it is that like destructures bone. Let's turn that off, and that means that the bone will be stronger. Or let's like which one can we do? Can we figure out? Can we
Like, build
increase
more
the
or
class or the
stop
blast or
breaking it
whatever?
down.
And that's basically what this bone density medication does, right? It turns off the one that destructures bone, I think. Anyway, it's not that important. The point being, it makes bones more dense. What they didn't know, because they're just tinkers, it's like if I tried to take apart a car, like an F1 engine car, and I don't know what I'm doing, I'm like in there with my wrench. They didn't realize that bone is a living structure that also needs to be flexible, and that if you just like turn this thing up, like you said, it's kind of the image that came to mind when you were describing like the internet connected web that our bodies are, is like everything's like a very simple idea would be like a watch gears, right? Like if you yank this gear, then like all the ones that are connected to it are also going to start turning.
Yeah.
But basically it makes them more brittle. So like bones is actually, surgeons, I've seen them say that like when you actually cut somebody open, you see the living bone. It's not like the bone that we're used to, like when you see it, it's dried, a dead body. It's, sort of this thing, this like structural thing that we talk about. No, bone is actually supposed to be, is like, has a level of flexion to it and torsion, etc. And these medications, well-meaning or not, end up causing people to have more brittle bones, which means that they're actually more likely to break. So it's like, because of this well-intentioned idea, plus the profit motive, plus like the wrong incentives and the inability for, once people are making money, to like intercept that message with the truth that doesn't make any money, right? Like the message that doesn't make any money never reaches you. That's something that I like realized, many years ago, and try to remind myself of whenever something confusing comes up, is like, well, I think it was, this is another tangent, but our grandfather cured his poor eyesight with, what were they called? Anyway, there's eye exercises. He found this booklet that was written in like the 40s or 50s by some guy. It was like the Brown exercises or Bayer, something with a B. But he's not the only one, right? Like you showed me a book where ancient, like there's a Chinese medicine tradition, basically like qigong for your eyes. And people have been curing their eyes with like basically physical exercises, their vision, their poor vision, their deteriorating vision with exercises for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Why is it that nobody knows about it? Why is it that when I say that out loud, it sounds like tinfoil? Like, come on, man.
I literally
I've heard of.
Yeah, I know somebody who got rid of cataracts in their eyes, and they were diagnosed on like in 3 different doctors' offices on 3 different continents, and then they went away doing those eye exercises, just like moving the eyes around, basically.
Yeah, so there's 2 reasons. One is that we're lazy. I know I notice it inside myself, and I see it all around. I have a friend, for example, who's a doula, and she gives people who are pregnant and about to give birth. She tells them, she asks them, what kind of birth do you want? And they tell her, I want a water birth. I want it to be pain-free. It's as much as possible, etc. And she says, okay, this is this is your plan. Start tomorrow with like 5 minutes of this kinds of exercise, and then you're gonna build this up. And like nobody does it, right? Because like you want a pill, or if not a pill, then okay, I guess I'll live with a surgery or something. And even people who, of course, don't want to have a C-section with their baby, like they don't want to like do Kegel exercises and every day and whatever it is that she's prescribing. And the same is, so it's that, it's like being lazy. And number two, I'm getting sidetracked here, is basically the profit motive, right? It's like the message isn't going to reach you. Like if you're being bombarded by messages about contact lenses and like LASIK and glasses and like whatever else that someone can make money by getting the message to you for, then there is no space for the message to reach you that's like, read this booklet and do exercises for 20 minutes that you don't want to do every day, but do these for 20 minutes every day for a year and your eye problems will go away. Like, yeah, you can find it online, but sounds crazy.
The only thing that could stop that is if people became deeply convinced by like an entire shift in like the philosophy that they're taught growing up, that convinced them that like that easy way out actually ends up harming you more later, right? Like it does work to remove the symptom that you don't like, right? Like it fixes your eyesight gets better. But like one of the things that I wrote in that PCS article about the eyes, and I linked it to cataracts and other things, is that your eyes are not supposed to stare at like pure blue light all the time. And these screens, they could have been designed with full spectrum light bulbs, but they were designed with blue light bulbs that then split the color into all the colors that you can see. But like behind that is just a blue LED. And it was done that way because they were the cheapest at the time, right? And it would have been a bit more expensive, or very much more expensive, to use other color LEDs. And now we could probably afford to, or it wouldn't be much more, or like if you did it wide scale, it would be the same, just because our technology for making different color LEDs got much better. Like I don't think it was even possible initially to make anything but blue. And then you had to split the color. But still, like the blue light was the source of it. And the blue light going into your eyes has a lot of harmful effects when it's not balanced by like every other wavelength, when it's just blue, when there's no infrared, which kind of has this anti-inflammatory effect, and there's no UVA, which also has this kind of like protective effect. The same thing with the UVB, right? The stuff that burns people. And, it's really only harmful when you're not in a natural environment. But like otherwise, even the most white, light-skinned people used to get a lot of sun and not burn, right? Like they would gradually get more sun as the seasons changed, and they would get this like morning sun that didn't have the UVB, pre-treating infrared and UVA in it that would like have an anti-inflammatory, and then they would have UVB that would have an inflammatory effect, and then they would have more infrared and UVA at the end of the day that would again kind of have this healing, cooling down effect, calming effect on the skin. And so they didn't burn, and they didn't eat all these foods that like also precipitate burning, like seed oils and stuff like that. So anyway, my theory here was that like one of the like what the body does is it like reacts to the bad thing, and it's trying to protect you essentially, right? So you could imagine maybe one of the reasons possibly that cataracts develop is because you're getting too much of a harmful wavelength of light coming into your eyes, and your eyes trying to like block it, right? It's trying to like and also like that could also explain why myopia or presbyopia or any of these things where it's short-sighted, nearsighted, farsighted also develop, because basically what that's doing is your eye is changing so that all the light's not concentrated on the most sensitive part of it going into your brain, which is also affected by the blue light, and all your hormonal systems from the brain downwards are also impacted by the blue light, right? So it's like trying to get the focus away from the focal point so you don't get as much of the blue light. That plus the cataract, like basically you're seeing like the body perhaps, I wouldn't even say, like reacting to a harm and trying to fix it and trying to protect you from it. And all you see is like, oh, I just want to be able to see. So you put the glasses on, and it's not that your eyes get worse, which they might, but it's like your diabetes gets worse, your blood pressure gets worse, your dementia comes on faster, all these things that you may not even connect. Yeah, what I'm saying is that like the harmful blue light is literally raising your blood sugar, okay? It's raising your blood pressure. It's causing stress on your body. It's driving chronic disease. And your eye is like changing so that you're not getting the blue light going into your brain because it's not hitting, all that blue light's not hitting the
So
focal point that you can see properly, right? It's not focusing anymore.
I think one
When
thing that we could talk about that might be useful for people is how, like you said, like maybe people would be convinced if they realized that like it's having these long-term effects. Like I disagree. I think we know.
it depends on,
I think yeah, okay. I guess
but
it
you don't
depends on
know.
the degree of convincing. Like what does it mean to convince,
No,
right?
no, no. Dude, people don't even begin to think that LASIK could cause them harm later, right? Like they agree, they know that like 1 in 2,000, whatever, is gonna have dry eyes and is gonna like curse the day the
Sure,
LASIK
no, but
surgeon
what
was
I
born,
mean
whatever.
is if you tell me that like I know that I shouldn't be doom scrolling. I know that I shouldn't
Yeah.
that like the fact that my eyes can now, you know, my vision is deteriorating and my focal length is like very shortened. Like I can see things that are a certain distance. It's
Yeah.
probably like this laptop screen and my
Right.
phone and
But my
whatever, but
point
like
here is
yeah.
that you might put up with the inconvenience of certain symptoms when you are deeply convinced that just wiping away the symptom is even worse than just putting up with the symptom. Okay. So like if you raise a whole generation of people to be like more stoic and just like, I'll just put up with it. Like I'm kind of like that. Like I don't mind, just like I'll just put up with it, right? Like I'll have like psoriasis and I'm like bleeding on my knee and I won't put steroids on it. Okay. And that was even before I knew that steroids are extremely harmful for you. Right. I was just like, it's okay. Just ignore it essentially. Right. So like people can just like brush things off. We're just not used to. We're
Yeah,
so
but
used to just
what
like
I'm saying is how do you convince people to
wipe
do
it away.
how do you convince people to proactively yeah, I mean, if you tell me that, then I'm like, okay, I'll be less likely to wear glasses. Like I try not to because I noticed you and Najala being like, why are you wearing glasses? It's gonna make your eyes worse. Or you know, I'll be much less likely to do something like LASIK if I think that it's gonna have downstream major negative effects. But if I know that doing daily 20 minutes of eye exercises would be beneficial to me, why don't I do it? You know, like that's I think like a rich vein of conversation. Well, how do you get people to
No,
do
like
the thing that is good for them? Like I mean, I did an elimination diet for 3 months. I lost 30 pounds, 35 pounds in like 4 months. I know what it means to that like at a deep level how eating
yeah.
whole food this is very something very simple just eating whole foods. I mean it was very intense, very strict. It was just meat and vegetables basically, fish, meat, vegetables, no seeds, no grains, no nuts, no dairy, no coffee, no eggs, no mushrooms, no sugar. That's most of them. Um, and I felt better than I had in years. And like my gas went away, my knees stopped hurting. And you know, I have like these knees where if I get in a taxi cab after 20 minutes, they start hurting because I can't straighten my leg. And now I know that some of that is physical, like structural stuff. I'm working with a PT and he's helping me like reactivate certain muscles so that they put less tension on the joints, etc. Anyway, but like even someone who has had experience with what kinds of dramatic changes changing your diet can have on your life, even though I'm in a worse place than I was then, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I am finding it impossible, as we discussed, to start Hakeem Shabaz's protocol, or much less just even trying to do that elimination diet again or something easier. And I think a lot of people, I mean, of course, there's a lot of competing, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of the signal to noise ratio is horrible in the wellness space, and it's really impossible for people to figure things out. I'm very lucky and grateful to have you as a brother because you can help me like sort through the morass. But like, how do you get? You know, how did you get like from sort of resistance, hesitation? I mean, I guess for you it was like seeing people in person who were healed from. No, was that part of it? No.
No, like just
Well,
now actually is I think the first time that I've actually thought of this, because I used to say that you just have to be like, it's a matter of like the harder it is, the deeper your belief has to be. And that
that's
might be
my
part of it.
experience.
That might be part of it. But actually, I think the key thing is just strength in numbers. The more people that do something, the more likely the next person is to do it and not find it hard. It just becomes the norm for the society. So like if
Do you mean
everyone was,
this like that book you referenced last time, the guy who proved that
not even
once
that,
people
just psychologically, right? Like if you go to the Amazon, you live with some like people in the Amazon, it's going to be very easy to just live like them because like,
Yeah, okay, so you mean you need to surround yourself with people who are healthy.
yes. So like this is actually scientifically proven, as much as science can prove anything, that like the healthier your friends are, the healthier you are. Like it's a
Yeah.
well-known correlation. The
The
fatter you are,
richer your friends are,
fatter
etc.
your friends are, the fatter you are. Whatever they are, the more likely you are to be that, right? So yes, choose your friends wisely is very important, but that's not all of it, right? Because like we used to live in tribal societies and like we had very close interconnected family relationships, and like you kind of knew everyone. You didn't just have like a group of 4 or 5 friends or 10 friends, right? Like you knew like 1,000 people or whatever like that maximum number is. There's like a number of
150.
150,
Yeah.
right? So you knew 150 people by name really well, right? And then you knew another 1,000 people or 2,000 people, just like they're associated with this person that I know really well, right? It's their son and their daughter and their cousin and whatever. And so you knew all these relationships also. You weren't like close with them, but you were close with 150 people compared to like maybe 1 to 10 people for like the most outgoing person who has like a lot of friends, who are close friends. Or like how many people in your normal like you're a pretty outgoing person, you probably know way more than I do, but like I don't know that 150 like how deeply people know. But anyway, the point is that like all those people, if they're all doing the same thing, if they're all eating the same way and they're exercising the same way and they're sleeping the same way, there's this like societal pressure, social pressure to just be the same way. And it's not hard. It's actually very easy. You can actually end up doing things like if somebody goes to a very foreign culture where people are doing things that they would never do at home. They go into this culture and suddenly it's like just obvious and easy and you just do it, right? It's just like, it's not even a question. You just start doing it after you've been there for a while, right? Like long enough, you just start acting like those people that you're around all the time. So there's just this osmosis. So what I'm saying is that like, if you teach your children, the whole society, if we raise a whole generation and every generation, and we actually like teach them something useful in school, and we don't brainwash them in things that are harmful, maybe you could like shift a society, right? Like you could change things. And then like there's other ways too that are more like autocratic. You could just like outlaw harm. You could maybe you need a king, right, to really make a difference,
But
right?
I'm saying, how besides like trying to change the way that people teach their kids, like how do you help your patients? How do you help friends? Like how do you help people shift when there's this resistance?
So I'm writing about this. There are some people who you can meet and they can like change your mind, or they can like inspire you to do something, right? They can like kind of like push you just enough that you start moving, right? They overcome your inertia. And so like Shabazz is one of these people who can do that if he meets the right person at the right time. It's not like he has magic or something. So basically the divine will has like a plan for your life. And like the things that are happening to you right now are happening for a reason. Like I was saying last time that like everyone who has cancer, they're a different person after the cancer, whether they get cured or they die of the cancer, whatever, they are changed. And like the point is the cancer was meant to change them in that way. It was meant to transform them, raise them up, make them a better person, right? It was meant to like push them on their journey upwards, right? To take them higher. And so this is what the divine does. Like that's the whole point of it with human beings, is to raise them slowly by degrees. Like you can't take somebody from down here and like throw them to the top of Everest. They'll just like die. They have to be like trained. They have to be like they have to go gradually. You have to go to the base camp and you go slowly and you go step by step and you get acclimated, whatever, right? So like the divine will is like, it wants you to reach mountaintops, like spiritually or like emotionally, just in terms of your human potential. And whether you achieve them in this life or the next life, like the journey continues. And like, that is the journey. It's like an infinite journey upwards, onwards and upwards, like at the end of Narnia, right? And there's onwards and upwards, into like better and better versions of Narnia, if you remember it.
No.
Yeah. So like they go to like a even better like place that looks kind of like Narnia, but even better. Like its colors are more vibrant and it's more wonderful, and it's just like this infinite progress of like into the future of like just going into better and better worlds in forever.
Oh,
And so this is an idea. It's, you know, it's a Christian idea. It's a Muslim idea. You know, it's like a basic idea from like many world faiths that, because otherwise, like human beings, like you just can't satisfy a person, right? Like that's like the hedonic adaptation. Unless the thing keeps getting better, there's just no satisfaction. And actually, what, you know, the divine is trying to do with people is to like take
so you
their,
think C.S. Lewis understood that then, huh?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. So you're trying to take the inherent selfishness of a human being and transform it into selflessness, which is like it's seemingly impossible. And so like the way that you do it, the wisdom behind the religions, the major religions, is that you give like a carrot, but it's in the next world, right? Like you can have whatever you want as long as you do all these things that are really hard that you would never do, that you don't want to do. You wake up early, you fast, you pray, you know, you're nice to people when you want to be mean, all these things, like you force yourself to do these things and you will have a tremendous reward in the future. And it's not even about the reward is the point. This is what Shabazz says. Like, it's not even about paradise, really. It's about convincing you to do this self-abnegation, which actually eventually makes you selfless. Okay. Like it wipes away your selfishness without by, you know, tempting you with selfishness, right? Like it's like, I want, you know, paradise. I want like to be like a billionaire, right? I wish I had all this stuff. And people are even tempted in this world because like a lot of good things come to you from doing that, even in this life, right? Like you're happier and you're healthier and you tend to make more money. And like that happens to Christians, Muslims, Jews. Like when people get really religious, their life starts to get sorted out and they're actually like, they feel better and they do better at work and they make more money. And like when you give more money, you make more money. I mean, it's like, I'm not really sure how that works, but like this is like Tony Robbins was talking about that, right? He was like, I think he was. Anyway, like this is like something that is well known. He maybe didn't talk about it in that interview, but he's talked about it elsewhere. That like the more money I give, the more money comes to me, right? Like, and it's like, yeah, like like you get that even in this life before paradise, before the next world, right? Like you get this like tremendous benefit from like self-abnegation, from like, and this is what is so hard about living in the moment.
This is a an aside, but like if that's true, and I tend to I I lean towards
Sounds right,
assuming that
right?
you're right about it. Why isn't that obvious to people?
Yeah, because so it's not even obvious to people who felt it. Like even me, who I've seen it in my life, and still it's hard to like constantly remember it and constantly do the thing you don't want to do. So this is what I was going to say, that it's this is what's so hard about living in the moment and thinking to yourself like a Christian Jesus do right now, right? At every single moment of their life. I want to do what Jesus would do right in this moment, right? Every single moment has a different thing that Jesus would do in that moment. It's totally different from the last moment. Right? I mean, maybe not completely different, but like the point is that it changes frequently. And so like complete surrender to the moment, like this is a Muslim idea, like they put it in those terms, like you are surrendering. That's what Islam is. You're surrendering to the will of God, to the idea of what would Jesus do right now. You are in complete surrender to that. So you're not doing what you feel like doing right now, right? So like, for example, gluttony, right? Like when you eat, you're supposed to not eat a lot, right? And so this is a thing in Islam, it's a thing in Christianity, it's a thing in like Eastern religions, Far Eastern religions, or you know, philosophies where you like eat slowly and you eat small bites and you take your time and you talk to people while you're eating. And there's all these like this propriety of eating, right? All these like ways that you go about doing things, right? Like in Arabic terminology, it's like the manners of doing things. There's a word for it, but basically, like, what are the proper manners? What's the proper way of going about the adab, right? Our mom used to talk about this when we were
Adab,
younger.
yeah.
She used to be on about adab. So, like, the proper way of going about things is what it means, and so it's like how are you supposed to do this and that and all that, right? Like in Eastern cultures, they're big into this. Like, how do you greet somebody? How do you do this? How do you do that? And the point is, all of those things they teach you to like not do what you feel like doing, but to do it this way, right? To force yourself to do it that way. And the more you force yourself as a child to do things in a particular way, which is considered the right way, eat with your right hand, wipe your bottom with your left hand, etc.
I think
Drink
you said
this
that
way.
with your
And
left hand, or are you reversed for me?
reversed, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So anyway, the
Yeah,
more you do that,
reversed.
the easier it becomes to do that, right? And so what happens is like the ultimate of that, like the mystic masters, like the people who are realized, right? Their perception of every single moment is they have completely given up anything that they want. And the point is, even for them, it's hard because like it gets harder and hard, like it gets more and more subtle, and they hit more and more subtle versions of like, I don't want to do this, but I should do that, right? In more subtle ways, right? Like outwardly, the big things, they're doing them all. They've just completely gotten used to them. But like inwardly, there's like a very subtle like distinction between like doing it even better or not doing it as well, right? Like being more focused or less focused. Like what I'm just like making it up because I'm not one of those people. But like, so the point is that like when you suddenly think to yourself, you know exactly how you should be in every moment. Like everyone has some idea of how I should act moment to moment. And most people just act how they feel like acting moment to moment. Hardly anyone in the world today is in constant control of themselves, doing what they really believe they should be doing in that moment to the utmost, right? Like if you really examine yourself deeply, right? And this is like a saying from one of the Sufis that like the people who don't become deeply steeped in this knowledge of ours will die committing enormities, like enormous evils without even knowing it, without even being aware of what they're doing, right? Like they're doing things that are harming other people in the world and like they're like just radiating out from them, right? And themselves along the way. And they're not even aware that they're doing that. They're not aware that they're lying and that they're cheating and that they're like, ruining their relationships. And sometimes they are aware, but like what they're aware of is like the tip of the iceberg is his point, right? Like people just, if you don't watch yourself, right? Like this is another kind of like idea from like the, esoteric kind of like versions of Christianity and Islam and Judaism and all the rest. They all have these like spiritual kind of lineages, right? There's like Kabbalah and there's, something in the Christian tradition and something in Islamic.
The Gnostics, yeah.
Agnostics, yeah, the agnostic tradition. So all of these exist, right? They're like taking that like specific kind of like flavor or like that like perspective of what Jesus brought or what Moses brought, and they're transmitting it down through the generations to people, right? How do you perfect your character and perfect your interaction with God and other people, right? Like how do you reach this state of doing things with utter purity, right? For the right reason, right? Not for the wrong reason. Like you might one state start doing everything that you're supposed to do, but you're doing it to show off or to make money or to like, impress people or like the same as showing off or to, for some other purpose, right? To become famous, to become, so like your reason for doing it is rotten, right? So like it carries through into the thing itself. So like, and oftentimes people can like sense it that like this person's not really, doing it for the right reason. It's like feels kind of off. Like they're treating me well, but like something a little off about it, right? Or they're giving away all this money, but like doesn't really seem sincere, right? Like you just have the sense that like this person is just not all there, right? Like you'll see them and like they'll be talking about how like, oh yeah, you should like, it's good to give money, and it's better than like pursuing this other thing. But like you can pursue anything for the wrong reason, right? You can be pursuing anything for just hitting the next goal and hitting the next number and just like racking up the points, right? And competing with somebody else who's doing it, right? Or to get more power, right? Like, or whatever, more control over the world, all kinds of reasons, or to just make more money. And so so basically, like, I forget where we started here. To circle back to the initial point. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I was following you, so I got lost also. I don't know.
Yeah, so that. That is that.
Oh boy. Yeah, what
Self-explanatory.
were we talking about? I mean, what I started asking you about a while ago was, how do you convince people to do what would be good for them? Like, what they have such
Right. And
resistance
then I'm
with.
talking about like having like help from other people and like community and stuff, which is important. And somehow we got on this like moment to moment thing, right? Like how hard it is to like be present in the moment. Anyway, that's how somehow I got onto that topic. And so like basically when you like, this is how you find these like synchronicities, and this like there's like a pleasure in it somehow, right? Like I don't know how to describe it really, but like you're so in the moment, and you're just like, and the reason it's difficult is because in each of those moments there's something that you would rather do, right? Like that's just the way human beings are built, and they're built like that on purpose, because fighting that is what makes you better, right? And that's the whole purpose of your life, is to like struggle against the thing that you is built in, like the built-in desire. Like I want the next, cupcake, and I want to drink, the next cup of beer and just get drunk tonight, and I want to, just, what is it, like
Doom
sow
scroll.
the oats or whatever. Whatever, right? I want to doom scroll, I want to like XYZ, like I want. And so the brilliance, the utter brilliance of the prophets and the messengers and the ancient religions, is that they take the what's quote unquote wrong, like I want to kill the person, I want to like beat them up, I want to yell at them. It takes all of the bad stuff that you want to do, and it like transmogrifies it, like, right? Like it's like, this is like the elixir, this is the red sulfur, this is the philosopher's stone that like takes lead and turns it into gold, right? It takes like the imperfect human being and refines them into something beautiful by dangling that imperfection in front of them far enough away that like if you do these things that are hard, you will get this reward over there, right? And the point is, it's not about the reward. It's not about like like anyway, it's not about like the palaces in paradise and the rivers running through it, and it's none of that. Like the point is to perfect the human being against their own, like,
Yeah.
against what they're,
But
yeah.
so given that Nietzsche famously said God is dead and like nobody believes in, many people do have no longer believe in the afterlife, right? So if you lose the carrot, then what's left to convince people with? A lot of people are unsure about what comes later. They're agnostic or they're atheist, or they're just like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know that there's.
Yeah, so this is also like the same answer that like the thing that you think is impossible, like I could never believe in God, like I hate God, right? Like the people who really hate him are like probably like I knew somebody who was to be atheist, and he had like deep hatred. I'm like, you can't hate something without believing in it, right? Like you believe in God, you just don't, you're not happy with him. You have a warped understanding of why he did what he did, but you certainly believe in him. But you're trying to like, I hate you, I don't believe in you either, like,
Is
so,
this someone we both
but,
know that you're referring to?
no.
No, okay. There's someone we both know that
Um,
reminds me of that story.
so yeah, so like if you are around people who believe, you're much more likely to believe. That's one thing. But the thing that like convinces people is not like arguments or like proofs or whatever. There's like this person on Twitter who's like, you know coming out with these like amazing sounding arguments that supposedly prove God's existence, right? No one in the history of time has ever been convinced by a logical proof of God's existence. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. That's why it's called belief. It's not logical proof. Even if once you believe, you agree with the logical proof, even then it's not the logical proof. And there's some very like interesting and very like amazing actual proofs for the existence of divinity. I came across one through that account recently, that was like designed. I think it originally was attributed, like the basic wrong version of it was attributed to C.S. Lewis, and then like somebody came along and like tore it apart, and he was like, "Oh, actually, I meant what you reformulated. That's what I meant. I just didn't say it right." And but like this like philosopher, this like lady, I think a student philosopher, like she reformulated it in much stronger terms to make it like really rigorous, right? Like within the confines of this proof, like there's nothing wrong with it, essentially, logically speaking. So I don't remember exactly how that proof works, but we can look it up later. Anyway, no one was ever convinced of something they deeply didn't believe in by something like that. And so what does convince people is their own lived experience, right? They have to have some sort of experience of the divine in their own life, right? Like something might be like you finally break down, you're so like, you know, fed up with yourself and your life, and you can't fix it, and you finally just break down and ask for help, and then all of a sudden help arrives, and you've been trying to help yourself for like decades, and then like all of a sudden you like sincerely like ask, please help me, like I really just am at the end of my rope, right? Like there's nothing left. I completely throw myself at your feet, please help me. And then like boom, all of a sudden something changes, and something, or you hit an upward trajectory, and you just like escape that like pit of despair that you thought was inescapable, or whatever, right? There's like many examples that people find in their own lives, and a lot of it comes down to like asking, and then all of a sudden it just happens, and so like this is something that like anyone on the planet can do, like just like ask for what you want from the person who can give it to you, who can create it. And some people have more remarkable spiritual experiences as well, and the most remarkable ones are the people who really work at themselves and get to the point where they like have this like real unveiling, where they like their heart perceives the divine in a way that you can't even explain, right? It's like reality as it actually is. Like I was saying, like that structure behind reality that creates the visible reality, what we can measure and like try to measure and experience. What is like reality as it actually is, right? Like that is not visible to the eye or to any instrument, because it's not physical. It's like what's behind what created the physical, right? It's what the physical comes from, right? Like what's the root of it? That's like in a different dimension, essentially, right? And that is the dimension that only the heart can see, that the human heart is designed to see that dimension. And so God just wants you to know him, essentially, at the end of the day. He wants to wake people up so that they're like, oh, hey, like you've been there all along, like this is a cartoon that I saw once where like somebody dies and they like look back on their life, and there's like these footsteps on a beach or something, right? There's like two of them, right? It's like, Jesus was with you the whole time, right? And then the guy's like, but what about there? Really like, there's only one set of.
When I was going through that hard time.
That was so hard. Where did you go? And it's like, that's when I was carrying you. You weren't walking yourself. So anyway, this is what's actually going on. That like God basically loves you, and he wants to wake you up and like see that like you were like made to love him, right? Like he's like the person who he's like the point is like the relationship, the intimacy level of somebody who's literally moment to moment about you. They're making it happen moment to moment, right? Like there's no intimacy beyond that, right? Like the relationship somebody has in their heart with God, there's nothing that's more intimate than that. And you, like basically the wonder of it is that like you are the only person in the universe who can know God the way that you can know God, right? Because like all of the particular like mix of divine attributes that are what create you, right? These divine like attributes, like, your kindness, like that's a divine attribute. God is kind, and the kindness that you have is coming from him. Like he is creating it. It's like a reflection of divine kindness. And you want to like further your like alignment with what is beautiful and divine, right? That's what makes a good human being, is that like they bring themselves into a kind of balance where in every moment, like, it's not that anger's bad. It's the anger in the wrong place, the wrong time is bad, for the wrong reasons is bad, right? Like, you should be angry when somebody is about to like murder a child. You should be angry enough to stop it, and you should like punish them, or you should like prevent it, right? Like, you should have some, justice. There should be, things that get you angry. If some injustice is happening right in front of you, if some like child is being like, mutilated by somebody for no good reason, right? It should anger you because it's worthy of anger, right? And so God is angered by that, and he wants you to be angry. And so, like, if you're always happy and you never get angry, there's something wrong with you. You're not actually aligned with what is beautiful and good. And so every characteristic is like that. There are situations where you should be fearful and you should be, loving. And there are other situations where you shouldn't be kind and loving. Like, when somebody is killing somebody, you shouldn't go and like give them a hug, right? Like, you should stop them, right? So basically, my point here is that all of those divine attributes, there's like a certain like, combination of them in every particular human being, which is a divine manifestation. It's like, this is a side of God that no one else can perceive. When you wake up to the fact that you are constantly being created by God, like you become aware that like what I'm saying right now, he's actually making me say it. He's the one creating this. He's the one who's giving me kindness right now, right? Like, I'm asking, like, make me kind right now. Make me not mean to people right now. And the source of that power is like his will, like making it happen for you, right? You just have to ask for it. Like, just, can you give me some kindness in this situation that I've never been able to be kind in before? Can you inspire me? Can you make it easy for me to be kind and not mean to this person that I'm always mean to? And so like, you're like asking, like, give me this thing. And then you're like giving it to somebody else, right? And so like, once you can see that happening, like in real time, right? That's what it means for the veil to be like removed, is that like you are aware that you're like a conduit for divine beauty into the world. And you are actually the only person who can see all of that, like that side of God, essentially. Hold on. Because it's your entire life is like it's like a jewel that God has created one time. Like, it's completely unique, right? Like, all the people you met and all the things that you did and all the situations that you were in and every single moment, God never created all that for anyone else, right? Right? Like, everything that happened to you, like, you are perfectly unique. No one else before, no one else after will be that creation that he created.
Sure.
Your life is unique, which means that like no one else got to see that side of God, right? No one gets to see all of God, right? Like, he's this like infinite side, infinite complexity, infinitely beautiful. Everyone gets like a little sliver of that experience that's unique to them, and it's their own. That's what it means, a personal relationship. No one else knows God that way, just like no one else knows you that way, right? Like, no one else can know God that way. Like, you might not know him, but no one else, it's not even possible for them to know God in the way that you know God, because only you were created as you. So I don't know if I explained it very well, but like that's basically what is meant. Like, that's the goal. And again, like it's such a bad explanation that it's completely wrong. And yet it's probably better than like no explanation. But like, the reality, like, when, like, again, only the heart can perceive that the way it actually is. Like, words cannot describe apple, even, let alone a taste of, like, that's why they call it, like, in mystic poetry, like, you're tasting something, right? Because it like gives the person the idea that like it's something that is indescribable, right? Like, you cannot describe an apple. You can say it's sweet and it's crisp and it's like, mouthfeel is this and it's, whatever. That's what I'm doing right now, right? It sounds like I'm doing more than that, but I'm actually literally doing less than even that. Okay. So less than that, like, it's less than descriptive than sweet is for an apple or crispy is for an apple. It's way less because it's infinitely more, right? It's infinitely better than an apple. And there was another aspect to this too that I just wanted to touch on. But like, once people grasp this, then they're like, oh, that's worth anything. Okay. Like, and the way you grasp it is by meeting somebody else who actually achieved it. And you're like, how did you become what you are? Like, and you just have a sense of it too from them, right? Like, it's not that you know what they're experiencing moment to moment. It's just that like you get a kind of a sense of like, this person has achieved something incredible, and you have like a rough idea that it must be true because they're just like, that you're getting this sense of that from them. And it's just like a very vague kind of like gross kind of like sense. It's not, it's just like a kind of like an idea that you have, and you're like, and even that little idea is enough to be like, tell me what you did to get this. Okay, I want what you have, what it seems like you have to me, right? I want that thing that you have. And this is the way that religion spread. This is the way somebody like Jesus came, and everyone was like, I want what you brought. Give it to me. I will do anything for it. And the people who met him in person, they were ready to die for it, and they did die for it, right? They were hung on the cross for it. Paul, like all those saints, like all of his, followers, almost to a man, I think, were crucified in some gruesome way, right? Or killed in some horrible way. And then the people, like, he passed it on to certain special people, right? Like certain special people epitomize that thing, and they're like carrying it in their heart, right? It's like something your heart senses, basically, essentially. Like, it's not something that your eyes can see or your mind can comprehend. It's more of like a feeling. It's like a sense or a feeling that's like subtle. And it's like, that's what the heart to heart connection is. It's just like, there's something special about this person, and like you become more and more impressed by them, and you're like, okay, I'll do what you did. Okay, tell me what you did. And then you start like listening to them and talking to them, following them. And even then, right, like you become more and more convinced, and you start seeing more and more of it, and still you're like tempted away from it. You're like constantly thinking,
let me ask you this, Hussein.
they want money.
If
Actually,
people
I
like,
want next donut, and when you prevent yourself long enough from doing all the like the next donut and the more, and going after the money and constantly thinking about AI and constantly thinking about business, and not like, switching modes every time the moment demands it. If you get rid of that stuff for long enough, it doesn't happen right away, but if you just go for like 40 days or something, right, of like completely submitting to like, this is what I think God wants from me right in this moment, and this is what he wants in that moment, and just going with it, just going with the flow of like creation, essentially, like you're not fighting against the direction of the current, all of a sudden, like your whole life becomes easy, because God is trying to take you to a beautiful place and you're like not noticing it all the time, right? Like every moment has this like tremendous beauty. Like paradise is in every moment. You just don't see it because you're not like giving that moment its full due. So you don't realize that like, oh, there's some weird synchrony here, and this thing happened, and like that makes me think this thing. And then you go to the next moment and you see that like, oh, now that because I saw that, this new thing comes to me, and then this new opportunity opens up, and then I meet this new person, and then like your whole life turns into this like miracle unfolding into more miracles. You're just like, how is this possible? Like this amazing things just keep happening and happening and happening, right? And it's the point is that like all those amazing things were there in the past, and you just like completely passed them by and ignored them and didn't see them. And they're here right now, and they're right in front of you, and you're just like so wrapped up in yourself. Like, what do I want to do? I don't want to do what you want me to do. That's like, I don't want to submit, ew, like what? I'm not going to obey, like this is how people think. And it's like, in that obedience is like, it's like you were made for it. And it's like, people try to describe it as like in mystic poetry, it's like they try to describe it to you as like, what happens when you're by something, right? Like when the wine like overtakes you, like they speak of it as like the divine wine. It just like overwhelms your senses. Or like as like true love, right? Like Layla, right? Like Majnun and Layla from Arabic poetry. Like this is like pre-Islamic poetry, but like, and it's continued in like mystic poetry, like Rumi's poetry talks about them, because it's like, there's no other way to explain to people what it feels like to submit to the divine. Like it's like being utterly in love with somebody, where you want to do what they want you to do. You want to make them happy, right? You know that if you do this, they'll like be like, they won't like it. They'll they won't be happy with you, and that would break your heart, right? And so if you extend that to like the nth degree, right, where like it's like you've experienced like deep, like a lot of people have experienced very deep love, and like how horrible like a broken heart feels when that is like taken away from you, right? Like the feeling of like it being reciprocated and then literally all of a sudden being cut off, and that person like turning away from you and saying, I don't love you anymore. And even if they do, but they're like, they just turn away and they go away, right? And you're just like instantly, like one moment you're in love and the next moment your heart is broken. That is what hell is. That is hell on this earth. And real hell is that like even worse because it's infinitely more bigger, right? Like God is like infinitely more than any human being can possibly be. Like his love for you is infinitely more. And even if he turns away from you out of love, like the horrificness of the horrible feeling that would create. So people try to like get the person to wake up by saying like it's like human love, right? That's the only way I can describe it to you, is it's kind of like that, right? Or it's kind of like how overwhelmed you are when like you get totally drunk. You're just like, it just overtakes you. You just can't control yourself anymore, right?
I'm
Or
curious,
like,
if people like this exist in the world. I know that you have met people like that they exist in your life.
at least I think they are like that, right? Like you meet them and you like I said, you have a sense that they're like that, and other
Why
people
is
have
it
met them.
that like the only examples of, like you said, people show up in the world in a certain way, other people are attracted to that, and they're like, give me what you have, right? The only people I can think of who exist in the popular consciousness who are like that are people like maybe the Dalai Lama, you could say that about. Eckhart Tolle supposedly was sitting in a park for like 2 years, and then people started talking to him, and they're like, you need to talk to people, you need to write a book. But like, why aren't spiritual teachers accessible? Is this like a question that makes, like, why aren't they on Instagram? Not
I
that,
mean, you have to go
not really, but
like the point is that like it's the most valuable thing in existence. There's this like Sufi saying that like, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but basically the Sufi is saying, if like the kings and the emperors knew what was in my heart, they would send their armies to get it, right? As if they could, right? So like you have to realize the value of the thing, right? Extremely valuable things, it's in their nature, right? Like to be kind of hard to get, you have to like go after them. You have to want them,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
otherwise you wouldn't value them to begin with, right?
yeah.
Like this is one of the reasons that like Shabazz realized he has to charge some people money,
No, yeah.
because like he
I'll
can start to do a protocol when they get it for free, but if they get it for $1,000, they will do it. So he's actually charging them for their own sake, so
No,
that
and
they
if
don't
anybody here
like,
listening is skeptical, not that I think anyone's listening necessarily right now, but if they do
they
later,
listen when they wake up.
yeah,
They're in the middle of the night, Hassan.
yeah. No, but there's like a platform here that's kind of like Facebook Marketplace. It's called Tangan or Carrot, Karrot, where people can sell and give away things. It's geographically restricted to a certain distance around where you are. And if I put stuff up for free, then like people are like, hey, can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? And then like they don't
Right?
show up, or they like flake, or they say they're coming and then they don't come. And if you say
Yeah.
like it's $10, then like maybe someone will
Yeah,
just,
and the people who would show up for $10 don't show up when it's free either.
yeah.
That's the point, right? Like they're like, there must be something wrong with it. It must not be worth anything. And like, so one of these teachers that I've seen, who I think has something like this. I saw like in one of the experience that I had when I was like once, was that like he wanted to give somebody a book that he had written, right? And like he asked the guy, like, do you have any loose change? And the guy was like, yeah. Like, he reaches in his pocket and he finds like some loose change. And so he was like, yeah, okay, I'll give you the book for that, right? So like he takes a few pennies or whatever and gives him the book. And so like people like that, they do things not necessarily for one reason. Like they do it for many reasons. They're trying to teach people something. They're trying to teach the person who's watching something. I learned something from it, right? It like drives home a point. And You like the other thing is like it's like a cone sometimes where they'll like say something that's like you're like, what does that mean? Or like, like that doesn't make any sense. And you'll be thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And all of a sudden, it might be years later that it like blossoms in your mind. And you're like, oh, that's what that means. And like, why do they do that? Right? Because one of the reasons they do that is because like the thing that you figure out, you hold far more valuable than the thing somebody just tells you. Right. And some of those things are like things that you can't actually understand if somebody tells you. Like they'll tell you and you think you understand it intellectually, but it's actually a matter of like it's an experience and like a way of being
Yeah.
that you're trying to understand. And that's like a heart kind of thing. The heart is a certain way, and then it understands the thing that the mind understood. But once you actually deep like you can read about love, and then when you are in love, you're like, that you didn't describe it. Okay, dude, it's even more than what you said. It's like the apple, right? Like it's just a different level of the apple. You can describe maybe love a lot more, detail like Shakespeare than an apple. But because people have like some like analogs to it, like I love my mom and I love my dad and I love my brother and I love myself. And so like they have some like ability to extend that into love of God or love of, romantic love. But that's a heart thing, right? Like love is a thing in the heart. It's not an intellectual thing. And yet we get them mixed up, right? Like we think that we can read about mystic experiences and understand what they are. And really they just kind of like confuse you and maybe even like misguide you if you're hearing them from the wrong person. And so like, um, Sufis often say in other mystic traditions, it's like the one who talks about it doesn't have it, right? Like me. And the one who, the people who have it, they don't talk about it because they know that like you can't actually tell somebody what it is. And you might even just like misguide them even more, right? Like they might misinterpret your words in some subtle way and they don't actually want to pursue it anymore and whatever. So it's really like the way these things spread is you meet somebody who has that thing and then you want that thing and then you change yourself. And then the other people in your life who haven't met that person, they come across you a little bit later and they're like, whoa, what happened to you? Like you're totally different. And if you become different enough, some of those people are like, tell me what you did. And then you're like, well, I followed that guy. And then they go and check that guy out and then they follow him. And there's an important point to this that like, again, people like, especially in the West, like this kind of Western concept of like independence and just like do what you want and it's all me. But like, there are analogs for this kind of like following or like, everywhere in human society, right? Like the people who followed Alexander, they loved him, right? Like, and they just submitted to whatever he told them to do. And it's the same for any hierarchy, right? Like hierarchy is just a part of human existence. And at the top of the hierarchy is the creator of everything. So you better obey him because if you don't, like, you're going to be obliterated, like he could obliterate you, right? Like you don't even exist without him, right? And we're lucky that like they're like the creator isn't like vengeful, right? Like for no reason, right? And even the vengefulness, right, that there is like meant to like guide the person out of the bad towards the good, right? Just like a disease, like just like a cancer, right? Cancer, it seems like this is a vengeance that's been like directed towards me. And like the people are changed by it. And like, you can look back on your life if you have enough like perspective and enough like ability to understand the way things unfolded in your own life, but looking back, a lot of bad things that you thought were really bad, right? Like they give us this story in the Chinese med school, like we were both there together for that first semester, and neither of us finished it, so neither of us are Chinese medical doctors. But there was that story about like the farmer and his son or something, and like the son breaks his leg and everyone's like,
No, the
oh,
horse,
how terrible it is.
this beautiful black horse shows up and
Yeah.
and all of the villagers are like, oh, like what good fortune you have. And he says,
Yeah.
let's wait and see. And then his son is like taming the horse and breaks his leg, and all the villagers say like, oh, what bad fortune. And the man says, let's wait and see. And then the war breaks out and the soldiers come and they press all the men and press gang all the men in the village into the army, and they're like, what good fortune you have, your son has a broken leg. And he's like, let's wait and see. And I don't remember what the next step is, but
so like, yeah, it just goes on. And even that just kind of, I mean, it's a funny story, but like in actuality, it's different than that. Like the good and the bad for the person who's like pursuing knowing God, like both the good and the bad are good, right? Like there's good in the good and there's good in the bad too. Like they're all drawing you nearer to like the divine, right? Um and this journey, like it doesn't make sense because like you'll judge people's journeys by like where they ended in this world without like seeing the full context of their journey, right? Like they wake up in the next world right away and they continue on their journey, and you didn't see that part of it for infinity, right? And so you've misjudged God, right? Like you have terribly misjudged based on all the things that like, how could God do this and how could God do that, right? Like the
I
the
mean, it's hard
intensity
for us
of
to
the next world.
understand.
You can't understand it, but like the intensity of the next world is such that it like completely obliterates this world, right? So like the people who realize what the next world actually is, they like it's a matter of like getting deeper and deeper belief in this like fundamental nature of reality, to the point where like all of a sudden this world looks like a mote of dust to you. You're like, it doesn't even matter. I'm just going to do
So
what I'm
let me
supposed
ask
to
you a
do.
question here, Sam. Do you think
Care.
that technology is going to split us into two races where one of them somehow manages to like extend their life from your perspective, like mistakenly believing that after death is obliteration, is nothingness? But do you think that we really will have people like live for 1,000 years on Earth, like trying to
Which
delay the, huh?
it's possible. I mean, it's not impossible, right? Like it is possible people could live for a very long time until the day of judgment, even, right? Like, um, and maybe not. Who knows? I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's
The
outside the
other
realm of
other two questions
possibility.
that come to mind is: do you personally think this is a lot, but do you personally think the day of judgment is coming soon, or do you think that's not a question worth asking because it's impossible to
Like,
know?
the point is you're dying soon. That's the real point, right? Like your day of judgment is very soon. It's less than 50 years from now, right? Or
Yeah,
100, or definitely less than 75, right? Like, or 100, let's say 100. Even if you live 200, like what is 200 years,
50 is
right? Like
pretty.
it,
50 would be a long time.
yeah, exactly. Like what, like literally, like time flies. It starts flying the older you get, right? Like every year gets faster and faster and faster because like it's like a smaller percentage of a bigger whole, right? So like your perception of your life is based on like this is like you're at 100. Every year is like 1% of your life, right? And you're like kind of holding your whole life in your consciousness, kind of like you're aware of this like big chunk, and every passing year is getting smaller and smaller, so it feels like it's going faster and faster. Maybe that's how some people explain it, but like certainly that's just how it is, right? For whatever reason, maybe it's because like you're not as aware of every moment, right? Maybe if you were really deeply aware of every moment and like finding like new like discoveries and new realizations in every moment, then you would be more like a child that is like that, right? Like that's what's so wonderful about childhood, that every single moment you're discovering something new. When you go on a spiritual journey, it's like all of a sudden you become a child again, and every single moment is a new discovery of yourself and your relationship with God and what there is in you, like what can unfold inside your own self, like things you didn't even know were there, ways of being, ways of interacting with people, depths of feeling and nuances of different feelings and emotions. These all start to like become apparent to the person. And I think maybe for those people, time may slow down because it becomes packed full of so much, right? So it's like the reason time speeds up is because you're just not aware of what's going on around you. You're just like kind of like flitting through the moments, and there's not that much happening because you're not taking in that much, right? And so it's really a kind of death or close to death is how they describe not being. It's like you're not awake, you're asleep, or they say it's like you're dead, right? Like you're literally the person who doesn't believe in like what's actually going on and is not like moment to moment like in this relationship with God is like somebody who's dead. Like the difference between the living and the dead, right? And it's like that the bone thing you were saying, right? Like they're turning they're making them like dead bones, right? Like dead bones break, dead bones are brittle, dead bones have no like moisture and no flexibility. They're like deadening you in so many different ways with not just technology but with medicine. Unfortunately, like And one of the ways the divine, like God, speaks in your life, I mean, everything is God speaking to you, including your disease, including your symptoms. And like covering it up is like plugging your ears and not hearing the message. And it's just like that's one of the things that's so horrible about modern medicine is it like shuts you off from the most intimate kind of like source of that message in your own body, and like gets rid of the symptom, and then you don't hear it anymore, and it has to pop up somewhere else and make some other problem in your life. And it's kind of like a form of misguidance. Modern medicine and a lot of modernity, it's just compounded misguidance. It's like misguidance from all different directions, just compounded. And so anyway, we gotta probably wrap it up, right? It's in like 2 hours. Is it? It's pretty late for you. Yeah, I forgot. It's a lot later today. Let's try to do it earlier, yeah? Or maybe make it shorter, short and sweet, maybe.
Yeah, tomorrow we can do it earlier.
Yeah, and bring some like, go and look at a magazine or read the news or something. Bring something you're interested in, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Everyone, thank you for watching. It's I'm having fun. Maybe it'll like make good TikTok content, for like my next phase as like a guru. Or maybe there's like some nuggets of like medical information I can put on TikTok, and maybe some nuggets of like medical information I can create a Substack out of. So once I get my AI going and just like splitting this stuff up, I'm gonna get some use out of it. So I'm gonna like basically I'm using my brother here to like help me create content, and make it fun for me. So talk about stuff.
My pleasure.
And I can also get the transcripts, feed it into my AI, teach it more about my worldview, get it to, write better and talk more like me. So yeah, look forward to talking to you again tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And maybe one of these days we'll be in a time zone where we can actually talk to people while they're awake, or maybe like my following will, there were some people. Aisha Shams was here. I didn't even look at the chat thing. Yeah, she replies to a lot of my messages. Mr. Bobrump F2576 said good morning. And hey now said, my 9-year-old mom is going blind and keeps the lights on 24/7 and writes with a flashlight. Explain the eye exercises. So maybe we can drop a link in there. If anyone knows the eye exercise, drop a link in there.
Well, there's one in the book by Stephen Chang. Isn't there a list of which is called the? What is that book called?
Internal exercises. Stephen Chang's, I think, internal exercises. And then there's another Qigong teacher who's Wong Kyu Kit, and he has a book on Qigong that has other exercises. And I think you can also find some of his eye exercises. If you Google his website, you'll come across eye exercises, Wong Kyu Kit, which is Kiew. KIT there's 3 names, Wong, WONG, Q Kit, KIEW, and then KIT, 3 separate names. Google his name plus eye exercises. You'll probably come across like a page on a forum somewhere where students are talking about eye exercises, something like that, or one of the sub pages on his website. And some of them have some overlap with the ones from Stephen Chang's book. You can find Stephen Chang's book if you type in like Stephen Chang Internal Exercises PDF. You'll probably come across the PDF. And so it's like, looking up
the
and down.
Complete System of Self-Healing, it's called.
Yes, Complete System of Self-Healing, internal, yeah. And yeah, so there's a bunch. There's like focusing, looking at distant things, counting leaves on a distant tree, looking this direction, that like moving your eyes in different directions, rolling your eyes in like big circles both ways, like as wide as you can make it. Palming, where you rub your hands. I remember reading that from our grandfather's book, and then you warm them up and then you cover your eyes, and like doing this where you're like, forcing yourself to like look. And some of these actually make a lot of sense from the perspective of like cataracts, because like one of the causes of cataracts, like one of the reasons that the things that prevents cataracts is like the lens has to like change sizes dynamically from looking far away to looking close, like your lens, where the cataract develops. One of the ways that it pumps like junk out of it, like it doesn't have ability to contract. It has to get fatter and skinnier. And the way you do that is by looking at different focal lengths. Like you look at something close by and you're looking for something far away. And so people like just weren't designed to like constantly be looking at one, length, whether it's far. And so we're designed for this kind of like dynamic changes, and also our bodies, right? It's like the same thing in our bodies. That's what develops leads to congestion, pelvic congestion syndrome, and swelling in the legs, and all these pelvic diseases, urinary diseases, prostate diseases, swelling of the prostate, all these things, even cancers in the pelvis, and then they spread to the rest of the body, like the stress and stuff spreads, are due to us not getting up and changing position enough. So I wrote this article, basically, actually, I think I named the pelvic congestion syndrome article "Standing is the new smoking," and then I renamed it as "Standing is the new sitting." So like basically people were like convinced sitting is bad, so they all bought standing desks, but just standing, it's actually being static that's bad. It's not just like sitting or standing. Like you actually have to be dynamic. You have to change positions frequently. And so
Yeah, there's a couple that I follow on social who they have these seated desks. That's what they were doing for a really long time, sitting on the floor. But most recently they've switched to, because there have been standing desks that are released now that actually have like a wide enough range that you can go from sitting on a ball or sitting on a floor to standing all the way up. And that makes a lot more sense. So as a doctor, do you believe in going to a doctor? Not most doctors, I'm guessing.
I mean, I go to Dr. Shabazz. He's a naturopath. It's a type of doctor. He's a Hakim, which is a type of ancient medical system, Ayurvedic doctor. So
speaking as a layperson, I would say that my experience of the medical system is heavily weighted towards the West. But, I had a crash course in our vaunted medical care in the United States from the point of view of someone who has money, through the lens of our father's illness with Parkinson's. And it was shocking. Even when he was paying, he had a concierge doctor. We paid about $4,000 a year to be in that concierge practice, who did spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with him on the first intake.
Like $4,000 was just her fee, and then
no, that was the guy. That was his primary care physician.
Older one. Yeah.
He was spending $500 an hour on the functional medicine doctor.
That was just the start of it, because then he had to pay all these expensive tests that she ran, right? Like 1 year he spent tens of thousands.
Yeah.
In 1 year.
But I mean, they were trying their best, but like he also had a psychiatrist, he had a psychiatrist, he had he had specialists who he would see for his leg pain, for his depression, for his teeth, there was so many things wrong with him, right? And what I saw was really eye-opening. And just to boil it down, in the US, we have this system that's all based on insurance. And so they cannot spend that much time with you. And so for my dad, who had this multifactorial illness that was affecting his brain and his emotions and his cognition and his body, and he had pain, he had debilitating leg pain and all kinds of things happening at the same time. They get there's a max that they can charge the insurance company to see you. So there's a minimum number of people that they have to see in an hour in order to pay the nurse and pay the receptionist and keep the lights on. And so my dad, who has this complicated illness that's, slowly killing him, they could spend 10, 12 minutes. And it's just, I just started to realize I was sitting next to him in the seat, so they're not paying as much attention to me. And when it would get to 10, 12, 13, I'd see them look at their phone or just, and they would be so how is the meds? Should I increase your dose? That was state of the art and that was one of the things that started to clue me into the fact that the medical system doesn't take care of us very well. But there were mistakes were made in his care, and so terrible mistakes were made in his care, and it's not just that; it's what we alluded to earlier with the bone density scans. What you open yourself up to when you go to a doctor, my perspective as a layperson, is an incredible amount of danger by the mind virus they'll place in you.
Yeah,
well-meaning doctors who think that they're trying to help you understand the severity of your condition based on their testing and their history with patients, is that they will put such fear in you. And, thank God I have some exposure to alternate ideas and more broader perspectives, both from, taking a year of Chinese medicine school and having exposure to the ideas that my brother has been researching and learning for decades, and, also through Hakim Shabazz. But my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer 20 years ago now, 15, at least 15, 20 years ago. And her surgeon in Dallas told her to get a double mastectomy. My mom had a deep knowing that this didn't make sense, and she started looking for alternative answers, and she went and did Chinese medicine. That's how our whole family got exposed to Chinese medicine, actually. And she was driving from Texas, where they lived, to North Carolina, where they happened to have a cabin. And they started going to drive 3 hours, 2 or 3 times a week, to Asheville from their cabin to get treatment from this wonderful practitioner named Sissy Majebe at the Chinese acupuncture clinic in Asheville, North Carolina. And her surgeon, or her doctor or surgeon in Dallas, called my mother, and they happened to be in the car driving. And she said, "You missed your appointment. Where are you?" And my mother said, "I'm not getting a double mastectomy." Mind you, she was diagnosed with stage 0 breast cancer.
Yeah.
Okay. And the woman told her, if you don't turn around, if you don't turn your car around and come back here, you're going to be dead within 2 years. I might be getting the dates wrong. Maybe she said 3 years. Maybe she said 1 year. When my mother told me this, like, I was filled with rage, right? Like, but when I step back, like, I think, I hope,
she wasn't
I give
trying
the
to,
woman the, I
yeah,
give the woman the benefit of the doubt. I think that she was probably thought that she was doing my mother a favor.
yeah,
But like, the audacity to say that to somebody who's decided that that they want to pursue something else, like, to send them, oh, you're going to go on a different path. Let me just push you on that path. Let me just stick a knife in your back as you decide. Like, I just think it's evil, but it's like, they don't realize that they're doing something
trying
that's,
to convince her by saying something really shocking and mean to like change her mind.
but it's
I know.
mean.
Yeah.
It's mean.
The point,
It's
like,
mean. And my mom didn't. My mom was cured. Okay, she got better. She was
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
She wasn't dead in 2 years. That's for sure.
yeah, and yeah.
That's just one example.
So
There were many
I think
others.
this is something. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate.
So you have to arm. I'm just saying, when you go into Western medicine, you need armor. And most of us are not educated enough. We don't have any exposure to, like, it's in our nature to defer to the opinion of an expert. Like, of course, we assume that, and the other lie about Western medicine is that all doctors are the same, or that, like, the medical care is, like, roughly kind of whatever hospital you go to in whatever state you are, in whatever city you are, whatever doctor you talk to at the hospital that day, you're getting, like, the opinion of medicine. That is not true. So does my doctor believe in going to doctors? Yeah, if it's the right doctor. You have to be really careful, because they will poison you. They told my dad that Parkinson's was going to kill him, and he believed it. And I'm not saying that, like, that he necessarily could have gotten better. I don't know. Like Hussein said, the disease had changed him in a way, and it took him on a path. But I saw that he lost his will to live once he'd swallowed that lie.
Yeah. So this is a really important point. I might have mentioned this to you before, but this was in Shabaz's lecture to Dr. Salibi's group of physicians, that, like, even people who believe in, like, kind of like holistic health, they oftentimes still have a myopic kind of like tunnel vision view of human health. And, like, I have talked to you about this before with Amma, with our mom, that, like, the souls are, like, deeply interconnected, and they love each other, and they want, like, what's best. And so, like, a parent's soul, like, they will even, like, sacrifice themselves for their children, right? Like, they will, and so basically the story was that, like, he was talking about 5 different patients who each had Alzheimer's, and how each Alzheimer's diagnosis came from, like, a different level of that person's being. So, like, physical or emotional or intellectual or spiritual, whatever, these different levels. And so this, I think the lady, and then he went from that, and he explained something even beyond that. So this case was like, the mother of, one of his patients who had severe dementia, and she's been living for years, right? And so her dementia came because, I think it was because her husband divorced her, maybe something like this, right? Like, something happened, and she was so pained by it, that she like her basically her mind, all these thoughts and like, you know, horrible were like affecting her heart and making her feel body and killing her, right? Body does is it's like, I got to save us. I got to save us any way possible. So I'm going to shut off the source of this pain, which is coming from these thoughts that you can't control. And this, it's also related to like an intellectual like, misunderstanding of like why God did that. And like, it wasn't actually bad. And all these things, right? If he could have gotten to her soon enough, he could have like explained all that if she was willing to hear it. But like, it wasn't just that, right? It was also that like, her son realized that like being forced to take care of her, like nurse her and like, you know, change and take her to the bathroom and like, you know, all of this stuff is changing me and it's making me grow. It's making like, he was actually aware enough of that to like be grateful for it. Like God is like doing me a favor. My mother's doing me a favor. And so his point is that like his mother is literally doing him a favor. Like that's the reason she continues to live. And you look at her and you're like, why is she alive? She's not getting anything from this, right? And yet she is getting a reward for it. And even though she's not doing anything, right? It's like this will to live. She's just not dying. She just keeps going, right? So that, and I said, you know, kind of the same thing about our mother. And it's like the opposite. It's like, sometimes I'm going to go sooner than maybe you think I should go, right? Like you had no idea that like I was at the end of my life and boom, I'm gone, and it changes her child's life forever, right? Like it sets the person on a new path. It just like kicks them, and gets them moving, and so like, it's not that it's like at a intellectual, it's not like a conscious thing, but it's like the souls are like deeply interconnected and they give each other what they need. And like everything is so perfectly timed because it is designed by somebody who has like designed it perfectly. Like your life story was perfectly designed to fit into her life story. Her life story was perfectly designed to end at that moment to affect your life story in that way, right? All of it was perfectly put together. You understand what I'm saying? Like it was perfectly planned. And so like when you start seeing that, you're just like, that's when you start realize every single thing that happens, it was meant to happen right now. And it's like beautiful and wondrous, right? Like it's like just this unfolding of perfection after perfection, where you start to see that like this next thing is taking me a little bit higher and a little bit farther and unfolding a little bit more, and like, showing me a little bit more beauty in the world and other people. And it's basically God's beauty. He's the source of all beauty, right? So I mean, seeing a little bit more beauty in yourself and other people and the things around you, and understanding a little bit more about the way the world works. It's like constantly expanding awareness and understanding is what makes it worth living, right? Is what makes a human life like actually such a tremendous thing, right? Like even if that human is like sweeping the floors somewhere for the rest of his life, right? Like there is deep meaning in every one of his moments that you just can't see, right? Like, or there can be, basically, right? Like he can have as much or more of a relationship with God and more of an internal unfolding than any, and a different one than anyone else in existence ever had and ever will have, that's totally unique to him, right? And so that is why, like, literally every person is so important to God himself, because like that person is one of God's manifestations. Like it's one of the things that like makes God what he is, right? Like he is manifesting himself, and like that's, I mean, it's hard to explain why, but like it's like him fulfilling his own being, right? By creating so much in such variety, is like his own like an artist, right? Like they want to express themselves. They want to like, this is everything I can do. Like, look. And in all of this is not even everything you can do. It's like, it's like a fraction of what you can do, right? So like no one can know him as he knows himself, because he's infinite, right? And like even all of this infinite complexity, for like however long humans have been around, and how many billions of people have been, and how many billions of moments of like individual, uniqueness have been created. Even that doesn't like exhaust his like ability to create more. And so like there could be infinite worlds, infinite universes, right? For infinite time, just like, this, so basically that I think it's important for people to kind of like get some idea of like who, and from anything, like you have to understand who and what you are at a deep level. Otherwise, you're just confused and you don't understand like why are all these bad things happening, because you think that they're bad, right? Like it's not that they're bad. It's like you have to like change your perspective and realize that like these are meant to tell me to do something different. Like they are happening. They're a reflection of my own imperfections brought here right now at the perfect moment to get me to fix that imperfection. So like, what is it about that thing that triggers me so much, right? And once that thing is fixed inside you, even if the thing is still out there, and oftentimes it disappears, right? Like, I mean, our mom said this. I mean, it's like, I think we can talk about it now. I don't think she would have minded. Like she gave this example in her own life that like our father's mother, she came to live with us for like a year or two. And my mom was like, there was so much friction and she hated it and everything, right? And she like worked on herself until finally like the friction got so bad, she finally just like gave up and she was like accepted it. And she was like, I'm going to stop being bothered by it. And like basically right after that, my father's mother went back to live with, somebody else. And she was out of my mom's house. And like, so like the thing stayed as long as it needed to stay to affect the change it needed to affect. And so like the people who spend their whole lives like feeling this friction, it's like because they never understood what the hell it was trying to do. It wasn't just needless suffering. It wasn't there for suffering's sake. It was there, like the suffering is there to like, basically like Shabbat said, it's like you can't clean, a pan by like being really nice to it and like gently rubbing, like an extremely dirty pan. If you just kind of like gently, wipe a sponge over it, it's never going to get clean, literally ever. But if you scrape it and, scrub it with a hard, bristle brush, it's going to get clean and shiny and brand new, and you're going to be able to see your reflection in it. So this is what the mystics say, is that like the heart is like that dirty pan. And like all of this stuff that happens to us, it's like meant to like rub it until it like reflects the divine. Like it's like a mirror facing God. And like, that's why you can actually see all of God in it, because it's just a mirror of infinity, right? It's like pointed at infinity and it's reflecting infinity in it, right? Like the closer you get, like you can see everything that's in front of it, right? So that's what the heart, I mean, that's one way of describing the heart. How it can like basically, hold infinity is because it's just like kind of reflecting something else. It's not from itself, and it's not, none of it's coming from it. It's just like kind of like, showing it if it's kind of polished, right? And so that's like what life is. And so like all of the misery that somebody's going through, like no matter how much you say this to them, a lot of the times like they're just like, I'm still miserable, and that didn't make any difference. So but it, it might plant a seed in somebody's heart, and it might sprout later, and it might make a difference in their life. So if you know somebody who's struggling, like try to explain to them, and maybe it will make a difference right then and there, and maybe it won't. And so like not everyone who goes to Shabbat gets cured, and not everyone who goes to like Jesus, gets, what he's trying to give them. And maybe they get it later, right? But it doesn't matter who it is. Like no matter how amazing that person is, some people are just not ready for that moment yet. And what that person gives them is just a little nudge in the right direction to hopefully eventually get to that place later, right? Which is why
Aisha says she likes the dirty pan example. I do too. I think it kind of gives me a little hope that like the hardships mean something.
They absolutely mean everything. That's the thing, right? Like modernity has robbed people of meaning, right? It's created this utter emptiness, right? It's just like all that's left is just enjoying yourself, right? Which is so empty eventually, right? Like the more you try to do it, the less satisfaction you get out of it. There's no satisfaction, right? And so like modern people, it's like, oh, if you're not smart and you're not successful, like you're nothing, like if you're just, sweeping dustbins and you're carrying out the trash, you're worthless, and like no one wants to do that. And no one wants to be that. And like the reality is like everyone is tremendously, worth a tremendous, they're like invaluable, every single human being. And everyone, no matter what they're doing, there's like immense meaning in their life, that uh, depth of meaning, like they've been brainwashed that like it doesn't exist, that like the universe is just atoms bumping into each other, and then the heat death of the universe comes and it's all over, and your soul is done after 100 years or 80 or 70 years, and that's it. It's meaningless and worthless. And like what gives me some hope is that like when people say that they believe that, like I think that they believe it on the surface, but like most people don't deep down actually believe that there's no life after death, because like literally, like basically the souls they were here, they existed before they were born into this world. They did experience like direct experiential, like God is like in front of them, and like they could see that they were being created in that moment, and that he's like the creator and all that. And then they came here, and like everyone had that experience. Like no one didn't have it. And like it's there inside, it's there in the foxhole. It's there for the person who's about to die. It comes back up, and you just have to find that before you're dead. It's much better if you find it before you die than after you die. It's much harder to find that after you die. It's basically finding, that deep love turned away from you, because it's actually you turned away from it. It's not that he turned away from you. You turned your back on him. And then you wake up and you suddenly realize that your heart is beyond broken. It's shattered, beyond shattered, right? Like that's what hell is. It's not like a judgment. It's just the structure of reality and what you actually are and what your creator is. Like you can't change the basic structure of reality, right? And so like this is what Shabazz means when he's like, I don't remember how he puts it, but it's like, I sent you this message. It's like metaphysics is like, it's just like brutally honest. There's like, this is the way it is. And what he says to try to drive it home to people is, if I could kill myself and end the suffering, I would be the first person to do it. But that's not the way reality works. You're going to wake up, all the veils will be removed, and you'll be right back at square, one or square zero, in even worse misery than you were when you drew the knife across your throat or across your wrists. You have no choice. You just deal. This is who you are, and this is what reality is. You have no choice except to move forward or get dragged forward, right? And if you don't make use of this life, the journey in the next life is not as easy, right? So like that's why this life exists. It's like a complete gift where like the actual like reality of it is like hidden from you on purpose, except for the people who change themselves so that when they see the reality, it doesn't shatter them. Okay. That's why you're not supposed to have the veil lifted. Like you're not supposed to go and take something, a drug or something, or meet somebody who forces the veil away from your eyes before you're ready for it. It's like overloading a circuit breaker. Like it can destroy you. Even if you don't realize it, it can like mess up your life essentially for the one who's not ready for it. So like, it's not a bad thing to be veiled. It's like, basically you can't like survive the unveiling until you've worked on yourself so that it's like gentle kind of thing. It's like a beautiful thing, right? It's like, it's not you being unveiled while you're turned away from the thing that is like so deeply a part of you that like, it's like loving yourself. It's like, if you don't love God, it's like, basically he's the one who's making everything you that's you, right? Like it's like a form of like self-hatred essentially, because like your entire experience of God is basically just you. It is your experience of yourself. Like that's all you can know about God. That's all you will ever know. That's like all you can ever experience is like your own self. And like I said, the things outside of you are like a reflection of what yourself is making. It's like basically telling yourself what it is, right? So like the way you react to what you see, all it does is tell you who you are, right? It's like that reaction is a meaning that's like you reacted that way because of who you are. It like tells you who you are, right? I reacted angry in this situation. It's because there's something about this thing that makes me angry, right? This thing is reflecting this part of my heart that gets angry in a certain situation. Other situations, I don't get angry. I do something else. And so like that unveiling of like, this is something that you are, it's like you have to like accept it, change it, right? You can't like, you have to be like accepting of it, just like a disease. It's like, welcome, come here so that I can fix this little thing that I hate. I don't actually hate you. I hate myself. I hate the way I am when you're here, right? Like you're showing me something ugly about myself. You know, my reaction to this situation is ugly. It's not the situation that's ugly. And some people will see that, like, it's like obvious. It's like you're like pouncing on the person when they're being nice to you, and like even you know it. You're like, the person was just being nice to me, but I thought that they were being mean, or that they were, you know, attacking me or something, or saying something, you know, or you know, and like when you really think about it, you're like, no, they're just being nice, and I'm misinterpreting it, right? So basically all those things, like once you understand this, and the thing is, it's not just a one-time understanding. It's like you have to keep reminding yourself. And that's why it's helpful to like constantly be listening to somebody who keeps telling you this thing in different ways, until it finally gets through to you after like 5 or 10 or 20 years or whatever it takes, you know, or 1 year. Like some people are just more ready than others, you know, they're just farther along. And so like once somebody wants this thing, they have to go and find somebody who has it. And it might require going somewhere and finding that person, or like searching the earth. And the thing is, when you're ready for it, so there's this saying, like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And this is the way it is. When you're ready, they appear right in front of you, right? That sometimes you don't even have to go to the ends of the earth to find them. Then it's just like all of a sudden you realize, wow, the person has been there all along, or they're like down the block and I never knew that they existed. You know, they could be in Seoul, right? Like you just never came across them because it wasn't time, you know? So it's a matter of wanting. Like this is what asking actually is. And this is why like the mystics say that like this is the importance of neediness. When you really, really, really want something, then you get it, right? Because you're truly asking for it from God. Like it's not just lip service. It's not like, oh, please make me rich, you know, like, okay, are you ready to do everything it takes to get rich? No, just hand it to me, you know? But like if you really, really want it, you know, he'll give you the ability to get it, right? And so it's the same with anything. Like once you deeply, deeply desire something, and so like if that's another problem with like psychiatric drugs, right? Like they just wipe away desire, right? Like you don't deeply want anything. You don't have deep experiences anymore with antidepressants, right? Like the depth is gone. It's just like numb, right? And another problem with like everything we use to numb ourselves, you know, social media, watching stuff, you know, pornography, you know, anything can be used that way. TV, you know, books can even be used that way. Things that exercise can be used that way, right? Like people think like, oh, this is healthy, this is not healthy. Again, it's all like your intention and what you're kind of doing there, right? Like what are you there for? Anyway, it's getting late.
Bedtime.
I can't talk this
Thank you
long.
for this. It's a good reminder.
All right, man. Love you, and I'll talk to you soon. I just want to like see what anyone else said. The dirty man, I was told by a monk that we don't come into existence till conception in the womb. I mean, the different people believe different things, right? So I don't believe that. I think we existed before we were conceived, and will exist after we die. So you're born into this world, and you're born out of this world into the next world, which is why, you know, in some mystic traditions, they celebrate the date of your death, because that's like the date of your rebirth into the next world. So there's this constant like progress of like birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth, but like it's moving. It's not like reincarnation. It's moving forward. It's not just going backwards in a circle. So anyway, it's enough for one day. It's enough for like 10 days, but I love you, and I'll talk to you soon, maybe tomorrow, hopefully.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye. Bye, everyone.